This is StarTalk. Neil deGrasse Tyson, your personal astrophysicist. And right next to me, I got Lord Chuck Nice.
What's
Chuck,
up, Neil?
how you doing, man? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great.
We have the one, the only, Andy Weir.
Yes.
Andy.
Hello.
You were birthed into this world as was it a software engineer? Turned sci-fi novelist.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Extraordinaire. Man,
Extraordinaire.
from The Martian, a best-selling book, which became a very popular movie.
A hit
movie.
Hit movie?
Hit movie with all kinds of marquee actors in it.
Right.
Jessica Chastain and
Matt Damon.
And Matt Damon
who was Mark
role.
Watley.
Watney.
Well, is it Watney?
It is Watney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. At the time, I lived in Boston when I first started writing it, and I lived alone because I was a loser. And I was like, at the time, I was really into Red Sox games, and they had a sideline reporter named Heidi Watney.
Oh, really?
And so that I like that name.
Watney.
I like that name. I'm taking it.
So, what year did The Martian come out?
Well, it took me years to write the book. I started writing it in 2009, finished around 2012. The book came out, I think, 2013 or 14.
Early teens.
Yeah.
And so the movie comes out in
2015.
2015, the movie.
Wow.
So that's a quick turnaround between
Yes, it was very fast. It was
So
lightning fast.
how's that
Congratulations
happen?
on
Like,
that.
was the book that popular that it was like a meteoric rise through the rankings? And then they were like,
I see what
boom,
you-
let's make a movie.
I see what you did in Meteoric Rise. I see what you did
thanks,
there.
man.
Meteors usually go down, not up.
that's
But
true.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
not true. They also
like
just
you hang
go
out with-
around.
No,
that's asteroids.
No,
You're right.
No.
Correct.
A meteor.
Well, the moment they break the atmosphere, right.
A meteor is doomed. So The Martian, you also bagged a marquee director for that.
Yes,
in
Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did Blade Runner. I mean, the guy's pedigree in this space.
Alien.
That's the
Alien
one.
1, not Alien 2, because that was
That was James Cameron.
James Cameron.
Right.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And so then that was followed by Artemis.
Which is the only one of my books not to be made into a movie. So
Yes, but it will
mark
be
my words, I will make it
It is
happen.
now a space program, though. So.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, what more do you want? wait. So how many total books do you have?
Just 3.
So we brought you here because of your latest project.
I see what you did there.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
Project Hail Mary.
Yeah.
Another best-selling book. It's still on the shelves. I see it wherever I go. And that's now a film starring Ken. He was such a good Ken. I can't.
He was a great Ken.
Hard for me to shake that.
Yes.
We're not worried about spoilers in this because the book predates the movie.
Right.
So the storyline is out there.
Yeah.
It's not some secret.
Right.
But spare the viewer, listener, the ending.
The finale.
The finale.
Right.
But just catch us up on just the most important plot development.
Well, the idea is that an alien microbe that they later named Astrophage.
Astro is star.
Yeah.
Phage is
Eat.
Yeah.
so it eats stars.
Well, that's what they named it. What it does is it lives on the surface of the sun and it absorbs energy and turns it into mass. It uses that mass to create light as propulsion so that it can migrate to a nearby planet with carbon dioxide so that it can get the heavier elements it needs to reproduce. And then that and its sister cell, the 2 daughter cells return back to the star and the cycle continues. And it spores out away from stars to go infect other stars. It's just basically like mold or algae.
Yeah.
The problem is that it grows exponentially, and there's now so much astrophage on our sun that it's going to dim it. And it is dimming it already, and it'll dim it to the point where Earth is no longer
viable,
no longer habitable by anything. And so, but they notice all of the stars in our local cluster have the same problem. They've all dimmed, and except Tau Ceti. So they're like, why didn't Tau Ceti have any dimming? Gotcha. So they're like, we're going to make an interstellar spacecraft to find out how. And it's like, how do we make an interstellar spacecraft with modern day technology? You use astrophage as the fuel,
of course,
because it does mass conversion propulsion,
right?
And that is the principal conflict of the story.
So, Andy, what we love and deeply respect about you is how much attention you give to the scientific detail infused within your storytelling. So, the astrophage, we spent a little bit of time on your last visit talking about that fascinating organism,
right?
And in this one, it's one of the few sci-fi films where there's more than one kind of alien in it. And so let's spend some time on the other alien who the lead character befriends. And this other alien, it's kind of looks like a pile of rocks.
Yep.
But it moves like a crab.
A little bit.
Yeah. So what's your thinking behind that life form?
Well, I started off with the exoplanet that he's from, which was at the time believed to be a real exoplanet and has since been proven to be nothing more than like solar flare activity from 40 Eridani, which is a bummer.
Okay.
But within the context of when I wrote it, I started with what was known about that exoplanet.
For those who were never amateur astronomers,
Okay.
because they're the ones who know the sky.
They know everything.
They know everything about the night
correct.
sky. Okay.
Yeah.
The way we label stars and constellations that are sort of visible easily, we sequence them by Greek letter, and it's followed by the genitive form of the constellation name. So the brightest star in the constellation Cetus,
Which means the whale.
the brightest will be Alpha Ceti.
Okay.
Okay. The second brightest would be
Beta Ceti.
Beta Ceti. So you move on your way down. Right. So Tau Ceti is not one of the brighter stars in the constellation Cetus.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
And the genitive name for Cetus would be Ceti. Then there are certain people who catalog stars going much deeper than naked eye and binoculars, and then they just number the stars, and it's not as romantic, but it's very precise in cataloging.
Okay.
Yeah. So what star system is this?
Well, this would be in 40 Eridani.
Eridani. So that would be
Eridanus,
which is the river.
the river.
Okay.
So there's a non-living thing in the sky.
Yes.
There's several actually, but this is a river, and I've always disappointed with the river
Okay.
because I think it's just leftover stars that didn't fit into other constellations. Because it's just kind of there, Let me grab a couple of these stars, a couple of those, and now call me something, Eridanus. So so this other life form,
Rocky.
rocky-like,
is.
Yeah. Well, Iridian is what his
he would be
species
known
ends
as
up
'cause
getting
he's from
called.
the
Eridani, right?
Iridian species, yeah.
So 40 Eridani it was believed at the time, an exoplanet around 40 Eridani A. If you'd like to describe the details of the trinary star system, you can now, or we can just skip over it.
Skip over it. Go on.
Over it. Okay, so 40 Eridani A is the primary star, and 40 Eridani AB is the planet closest to that star.
Okay.
And that was an exoplanet that was 8 Earth masses, took about 46 Earth days to orbit the star, very, very close to the star. Turns out, doesn't exist at all. It was a mistake made, and our more accurate methods of exoplanet detection have disproven it. But
So he's not describing the plot of the film.
Right.
He's describing
the actual science behind
which misled him initially
to believing that it was there. Anyway, so starting from that planet, I said, well, it's going to be really hot because it's very close to its star. It's closer to its star than Mercury is.
Wow.
And then I said, but because all life in the story was caused by a panspermia event that radiated out from Tau Ceti, including all life on Earth, including all life on Erid, which is the nickname of the planet, everything has to be water-based. So how do we have liquid water on a planet that's really, really hot? And the answer is have a really, really high atmospheric pressure.
Right.
Because water won't boil. And, so like their oceans are over 200 degrees Celsius.
Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at
Sea level.
atmospheric pressure.
Right.
At our atmospheric pressure, increase. So they have 29 atmospheres at their surface, and so water, even 200 degrees Celsius water, won't boil.
Wait a minute. So you backed into these alien properties from what would have to be the properties of a planet that we would later show doesn't exist.
Yes, that's right. Unfortunate.
Wow.
Anyway, I mean, if I was going to make up a fake planet, if it was going to be an imaginary planet in the first place, I didn't have to constrain myself.
Right,
exactly.
Anyway,
no, constraints is the soul of creativity to all engineers.
Yes. So anyway, I decided it would have to have a thick atmosphere. How do you have a thick atmosphere when you're that close to the sun? A star is like sandblasting your atmosphere off. So you got two things you can do. You can do what Venus does, or you can do what Earth does. Right. You can do what Venus does, which is have really heavy molecules that are hard to knock out of the planet's gravity well. Venus has carbon dioxide. Right. I decided 40 Eridani has ammonia. There's ammonia everywhere in our system, so why not? And then the other thing you can do is have a really powerful magnetic field like Earth does. So I decided 40 Eridani, or I've decided Erid rather, has a tremendous magnetic field. The way you get a magnetic field is, Neil, spin, baby, spin.
Well, plus
as a Mambo king.
No, you need a conducting core.
You need like
iron
a
core.
molten iron core with convection, but then also spin to make a dynamo. Right. So their magnetic field is about 25 times as powerful as ours, and they rotate once every 6 hours.
Wow!
So that planet spins like crazy. Yeah. But with those two things combined, I figured that's enough to protect the atmosphere. So now finally, I have liquid water on this exoplanet.
That was a long way to go. Give that puppy some liquid water.
And then with those constraints, I'm like, well, I'm not sure light would make it to the surface through that thick an atmosphere. Right. Ammonia has a color at large scales. So I decided that no light gets to the surface. And so the biosphere works kind of like an ocean. There's photophilic life up top that like absorbs the sunlight and reproduces that way. And then beneath that, there's life that eats it. Beneath that, there's life that eats it, just like our ocean.
Right, like our ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so the apex predators are things that are the iridians, which are the intelligent species. They live on the surface. There's no light down there. There's no reason for them to evolve eyes.
Course.
And they do everything through echolocation, et cetera, et cetera. So bit by bit, I put it together. There's also no free oxygen in the air. So they have to have an enclosed body that deals with the carbon dioxide, oxygen, back and forth reactions. So they have different kinds of cells within their body. Everything's fine as long as they keep adding energy to the system. So they need to eat food that's found on the ground. That's why they're obligate predators. So all this,
it's kind of like some of the animals that live near volcanic vents here on Earth.
Well, they're for their biosphere, they're not really extremophiles. This is the normal thing for them. But they are obligate carnivores. And so if you imagine things that live on the seafloor, like crabs or things like that, so far down that the light isn't even reaching them, but there's still plenty to eat.
Right.
It looks like a pile of rocks. An animated pile of rocks, but the appendages move in a crab-like way.
Well, he has 5 legs or arms. They can use them interchangeably that each end in 3 claws. And so it's pentagonally symmetrical, you might say. And he doesn't actually move specifically like a crab. He walks on those legs, but he can walk on 3 of them while holding stuff with 2 of them, or he can walk on 2 of them even if he needs to.
So I learned in the wiki fan page of your book.
Oh, excellent! An undeniable source of absolute truth. Yes.
And I hadn't thought about it, and I read this before I saw a preview of your film. The creature does not have a front or a back.
Right, because it has, so the way it does its echolocation is it has, I call them oracles, but they're basically like all over his body are just like we have nerve endings for touch.
Right.
He has nerve endings for sound. And so his brain untangles all that information. He knows his body shape and he knows his body shape and his position. Like an iridian might reach out his arm to get a better view of something. He's like, wait, let me hear this a little better.
It's like this. That's his way of doing that.
A little bit. Yeah. And also, wouldn't it be neat if you could just go like this and the room gets brighter for a second? You could be like, because that's how that works. Because of that, they have a constant input of their 3D environment, constantly going on in all directions.
There has to be some sound somewhere for that to be the case.
That's true, but there's always ambient sound.
Yes, okay.
There's wind or whatever, and if they don't have any, they can make some, right?
Right.
But so they have this constant input of their 3D environment. So they don't have the part of their brain that we have that maintains cognition of what's around
Spatially,
us.
yeah.
So you're looking at me, but you know what's behind you.
Right.
In your brain, you don't have to think about it. Your brain's just keeping track of that. You know there's a bookshelf there. And in a way, you can see it in your mind. You know where it is.
Right. And if I turn around and it's not there, I'll notice it's not there.
You'll notice it's not there.
Right.
They don't have that part of a brain. They don't have to track that because they constantly have 360-degree input.
Right.
It's like if you had eyes all the way around your head.
That's pretty brilliant.
Now, if they suddenly can't hear anything, they will lose all of that information.
Right.
If you close your eyes, you still know pretty much everything that's going on.
Right.
Well, no, but in addition to that, you just close your eyes. You know where everything is in the room. Yeah, I mean, not precisely, and you probably bump into stuff, but you know there's a table there, a microphone here, a chair here, bookshelves, Neil's desk, Neil,
but why wouldn't they be able to do the same thing we do? Because when we close our eyes, we have lost the input, but what we're doing is recreating it in our mind.
But your mind has a whole system of maintaining a 3D model of your environment because you can't look at it all the time.
I understand what you're saying.
So that's
because our minds are acclimated to always tracking what's around us. And persisting. Right. Yeah. If we didn't have that, when that would be taken away, we'd be lost immediately because they don't need to do
Basically,
that.
they don't have object permanence.
This is that famous test with infants.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a famous test.
That's
the object's still there when it goes behind the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
And until a certain age, it goes behind the wall and then they just look somewhere else. It's gone. And then after a certain age, they'll look and they'll anticipate it coming out the other side.
Yeah. That's why peekaboo is so effective with infants. You vanish from reality.
With
I was going to say,
well,
I still like it.
Chuck's still working on object permanence. Well, they do have object permanence. Iridians, if something leaves their sensory input, they do, but they don't have that spatial map in their heads.
Okay.
Richard Dawkins thinks that bats that use echolocation, being mammals, that means they're structurally similar to us in important ways. He thinks they might use echolocation and map colors onto it.
Interesting.
He thinks they might be able, but because they have the capacity to think of color, why not add color to echolocated objects?
Right.
I mean, why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Well, one thing I saw interesting lately is they took a thing, you know, how the cones in your eye react to different wavelengths. So there's red, green, and blue cones, and there's overlap and stuff like that. Well, there are some activations that never happen because, like, any wavelength that's this, you know, any wavelength in this range will activate your greens a little bit and your blues a little bit and stuff like that. And so what they did for the hell of it, I think, was they took human test subjects and shined lasers into their eyes to just activate the blue cones. And so now their brain is getting a signal that has just blue cone activation and no green cone activation. And that makes a new color because they have never experienced that in their life. And they have a hard time describing it. They say it's like this really, really brilliant, bright blue, which should surprise no one. But it's interesting. Imagine being able to go in and have somebody shoot a laser in your eye and see a color you have never seen, nor will you ever see again, because it can only be done by specifically activating those. We are way off topic.
Through your pen, through your mind, the main character names this life form Rocky.
Rocky, because he looks like a rock.
He looks like a bunch of rocks.
Of rocks.
Very imaginative.
Okay. Then it took me a half second. I want to alert people of this so that they don't lose this half second. He asks Rocky, is there someone back at home?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll call you Rocky and I'll call your mate Adrian.
Okay.
Yep.
But you got that's very pop culture.
Yeah, very pop culture.
Retro. Decades.
I'm from
retro.
Philly. It's totally fine. We love it.
It's 50 years ago.
I am decades
Is it
retro.
that?
Yes. We didn't say what's going on in case you don't know. Rocky, the movie with Sylvester Stallone.
Yes.
And he's from Philadelphia.
Correct.
And his wife's name is Adrian.
His wife's name is Adrian. We all know that. Right.
But I wanted, from the marketing, I wanted them to either CG render or have the puppeteers do it to show Rocky from Project Hail Mary running up the steps
of the Art Museum in Philadelphia.
Yeah, the Art Museum in Philadelphia.
So one thing that I didn't quite follow precisely, by what means and mechanism was the lead character, of course played by
Ken,
he sets up his computer there's initially a shared vocabulary. They start with science and symbols and things, and then that rapidly becomes full-on exchange of translated knowledge. So I didn't quite follow how that got so effective so quickly.
Well, it's just he had his computer be able to analyze the waveforms, and so Rocky would say a word.
The acoustic waveforms, yeah.
The acoustic waveforms that Rocky's making, and it would say a word, and then he'd put that in his program and say this, and this is the word, like hello, and then when the computer heard something close enough to that, it would then have a synthesizer voice say hello to be Rocky's voice. So, and Rocky is not speaking full, poetic, very high end. He's talking like real simple words for dumb human.
Right.
He's speaking sort of a pidgin, Iridian English hybrid thing to try to keep the words simple and keep the sentence structure simple so that they can each talk to each other.
Oh, cool.
But there had to be some starter exchange of vocabulary.
Yep. And they started with, I think, the number 1. Yeah, this is my number 1. 1. So what do you say for 1? Okay, cool. 2.
Okay.
It's,
Okay. That's cool.
That works. So
Oh, and by the way, since you're talking about Rocky and Adrian, I'm surprised. Did you notice that the name of the ship is the Hail Mary, and it's full of...
It better be Grace. But
Grace.
Yeah.
Wow.
The main character's name is Dr. Ryland Grace. The Hail Mary is full of grace. I could not resist it.
Wow.
I am weak. I'm weak, Neil.
Let me ask you this, though, because you seem to have this theme of alone in space.
Oh, yeah.
What is it that fascinates you about alone in the cosmos.
Well, to be fair, Ryland is not alone, right? He's got his brother from a rocky mother with him, right?
Okay,
but failing that, it's just a very convenient method of storytelling. You have your hero is like completely isolated when they're out in space. It's like, even if all of humanity wanted to help him, which was the case of the Martian, there's very little they can do.
So the lead character in this story he's kind of a reluctant hero.
To say the least.
He's kind of a selfish coward.
I wouldn't say selfish.
He doesn't want to save the world. He doesn't want, and yet he's cast into this spot kind of against his will, reminding me of the great Shakespearean line.
Yes.
Some people are born great. Some people achieve greatness. Other people have greatness thrust upon them.
He had it thrust into him.
He was a reluctant participant in this mission,
right?
But everyone knew they needed him, so they just drugged him and put him on.
Yeah, that's a pretty big spoiler, by the way, for the movie. So you might want to make an extra warning.
Okay.
and the book also. But yes, he was there against his will, and I wanted to make a likable protagonist. And I think we can all feel like we've all felt at times that we are like unqualified, unwilling, and scared.
You want the person to overcome these weaknesses,
which he does,
and then triumph.
Which he does.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That always redeems a character too.
Yeah.
He could start off scared, cowardly, but then overcomes that to do heroic feats.
Right.
Especially if they're selfless heroic feats.
Right. I mean, the first time he was willing to really risk his neck was because of the friendship he had made with Rocky.
Well, okay. So that's cool, man.
Mm-hmm.
Within the context, saving humanity was a guaranteed death sentence. It was a suicide mission.
Gotcha.
Saving Rocky was high risk of death. It was a little different.
Okay.
That's an interesting distinction.
I like the distinction. Yeah.
High risk of death or certain death. Certain death. Yeah. I'm taking the high risk.
Yeah.
So I want to just compliment you on conceiving of aliens that are not just actors in a suit.
Yeah.
So therefore you have the freedom for them to not be humanoid.
Right.
Which is one of the weakest points of all Hollywood aliens.
Well, to be fair, Hollywood aliens are usually not in $200 million movies, right? And so you've got to be
Is that
realistic.
what your movie cost?
Yeah. If you're going to write a science fiction story and you want to tell it in a reasonable budget, like an episode of Star Trek or something like that,
you get the rubber costume.
You get the forehead prosthetics. You have the alien be in the same environment. You're good. But yeah, with the luxury of being able to do whatever you want, we can have our alien require xenonite barriers, and stuff like that, and be completely non-humanoid.
Tell me about the barriers, because your alien requires a different environment.
29 atmospheres of ammonia.
29 atmospheres.
A lot of pressure and ammonia.
And a lot of heat.
That's right. Hot, high pressure, and poisonous gases.
Yep.
So the boundary between the regular spaceship and the alien in the spaceship, what was that boundary? It was transparent.
It was made of xenonite, which is a material that is somehow one of the main components of it is xenon, a noble gas that doesn't normally react with things.
Right.
What I wanted,
it makes super bright headlights. But
yes. So Ryland has no idea how that stuff works or how it's made.
So it's a rocky. It's a rocky.
Yeah,
alloy.
it's iridium technology.
Okay.
And so what I wanted was, I didn't want either species to be like completely scientifically more advanced than the other. From the Iridian's point of view, we're kind of the advanced aliens because we have computers, we have better technology across the board. But Iridians have much better materials technology.
So they're material scientists, basically.
Yeah, their materials science is far better than ours. But our like they didn't understand relativity. The Iridians didn't.
So why was it important that they didn't know relativity?
We figured out flight before we figured out relativity. Okay,
Wow.
so
why was it important that they did not know relativity as a storyteller?
Because it gave me an excuse to, if you assume Newtonian physics, which they did, they calculated how much fuel they would need to get from their home star 40 Eridani to Tau Ceti, and for a trip back. It was supposed to be a round trip thing. And you calculate that fuel, you get a certain number. The real amount of fuel you need to use is considerably less due to the time dilation and the relativistic effects you have when you're going there. So he ended up with a whole bunch of excess fuel, which enables him.
There, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
And so that's the evidence they didn't know relativity. Otherwise, they would have done the proper calculation.
Right.
Right.
And Rocky, it's in the book, but not in the movie. Rocky says they were very confused. It's like, okay, the planet was, the other star was closer than it should be, so we slowed down, but then it got further away. What?
Oh, so they're experiencing relativity, not knowing what the hell's going on.
What is going on?
Wow. So do you regret that wasn't in the movie?
No, you had to cut things out.
Yeah, so okay. What, because you don't have final edit control, I presume, because you're just the author.
Well, I'm also a producer, so I had say.
What, were you executive producer?
No, I was a real producer.
So is there a scene you felt should have been in the movie?
Yeah, my only regret, and Drew and I both fought for this. Drew wrote the adaptation for it.
I saw he's credited in for that. Drew, the full name?
Drew Goddard.
Drew
Goddard wrote the adaptation, did a fantastic job. And he and I both wanted this one scene, and we just didn't have time for it because the runtime was going so long. But there's a scene in the book where they nuke Antarctica. They basically back on Earth, Earth. They set off a bunch of nuclear explosions in Antarctica to make an entire ice shelf fall into the ocean so that it will melt and release all the methane, which is greenhouse gases, so that Earth will retain more of the heat that it is getting from the sun.
Because the astrophage is eating the sun.
Dimming the sun.
So, wow.
So they're like, we need some global warming.
Wow. That's something that was not in the film, where we don't see Earth descending into...
Right, and that's also not in the book. We see in the beginnings of it in the book, there's issues, they're starting to have problems, and a lot of their problems are caused by the amelioration techniques they're proactively doing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they nuke things are going to get worse, but then we're going to need that heat.
Yeah.
It was a stretch for me, if I may, as an academic, to completely embrace the idea that the entire world of biochemists is insufficient to handle this mission, and they need the one guy who has the expertise that no one else has, and he's a middle school chemistry teacher.
Right. So to be fair, he was a speculative xenobiologist. He is a PhD. Astrobiologist. So he had done that, and then he'd left that field. He'd written papers and stuff.
But he wrote papers, so the papers are out there, and other people are still active.
Right.
And he's no longer active.
Right.
So why does he still become the guy?
Because he's been part of the mission and the mission planning the whole time. So he understands all the other aspects of the mission as well. He knows all about the Hail Mary itself. And they don't have time to train someone else up on all the other stuff. And he's as well trained as any of the other biologists
in the way they need him to be.
In the field that they need him to be.
Okay. He got out of that one.
Does that work for you?
He got out of that one.
Okay. I got wriggled out of that one.
So again, congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Some of your books getting turned into movies.
Thanks,
and it's a delight anytime you come visit us here. And for whatever might be your next book still, we want to stay on your tour.
Okay.
Your tour list.
Always.
All right.
Very
cool.
Excellent.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And any last just bits of wisdom or advice for us all? How about aspiring writers? What might you say?
Aspiring writers? I've got 3 bits of advice for aspiring writers. 1, you have to actually write. Ideating and imagining and world building is not writing. You need to type. Number 2 is resist the urge
to execute the idea.
Yeah. Number 2 is resist the urge to tell your friends and family your story.
Right.
It satisfies your need for an audience and saps your will to write.
Oh,
very nice.
Ooh,
so you can give them a chapter at a time as you write it to satisfy that need for
Don't tell them.
Don't tell them.
Okay.
And then the third one is there's never been a better time in human history to self-publish. There's no old boy network between you and the readers anymore.
Right.
You can, for absolutely zero financial risk, you can put your book out there.
Andy, thanks for being high up on my compliment list.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And let me give you the highest compliment I could ever give. Don't stop moving the needle in your storytelling for Hollywood, because it was looking like same shit, different day for so many years. And with your stories out there, it gives us something fresh to embrace and imbibe.
Thanks so much. That means a lot to me.
In the genre. You know what we're going to do today? Something I think should have done long ago. We're going to take a look at the ingredients for life as they exist in the rest of the universe, and how some of those ingredients may have influenced what happened on the early Earth.
Nice.
Yes. And we have a record of what the early solar system was like, and it's contained within our comets and asteroids. They've just been orbiting the sun since like day one. Right. And they haven't been absorbed into a volcano. Yeah. They haven't been rained on. Right. They haven't been peed on by any animals. We have one of the world's experts in this, in Harold Connolly Jr. Harold Connolly, welcome to StarTalk.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here.
Excellent. You're founding chair. I love those. Chair and professor in the Department of Geology in Rowan University, and co-investigator, COI is the abbreviation of that, and mission sample scientist for the OSIRIS-REx mission. I know. So first of all, we have to give the test. You have to give every principal investigator. Okay. Please tell us what OSIRIS stands for, because it's an acronym.
Okay, but I'm not the PI, just mission sample scientist. So OSIRIS-REx is NASA's New Frontiers 3 asteroid sample return mission, and it stands for Origins, Spectral Interpretation, Origins, Spectral Interpretation. I think I know it after all these. Spectral Interpretation, Resource Identification, Security, and Regolith Explorer.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah, that's very tortured right there. Well, that's no. So the thing is, we know that asteroids have hit Earth before, and we call them meteors coming through the atmosphere, meteorite when you pick it up. And so we have quite a large catalog of space rocks on Earth. So what is your motivation for going to an asteroid that's out there in space?
That's a great question. A couple of motivations, and they're fit into that strange, acronym we just discussed. And there's one particular branch of meteorites, which I'm just going to show you both right here because I'm holding it in my hand, which is known as carbonaceous chondrite. There's several different kinds of meteorites we have on Earth, and these are really old. This is what gives us the age of the solar system, the 4.567 billion years old. This one comes from sub-Sahara in Africa, so it's probably had camel dung on it at some time. We'll follow our analysis or analog earlier. Anyway, so the key is we don't know exactly what meteorites come from what asteroids. We have some spectral identification, meaning we look at different wavelengths of light, or we identify asteroids, and we want to be able to understand the geologic context of these meteorites, because any rock the geologist has, you can only tell so much about the story without putting it into the chorus that it's been singing in to know what is the larger picture. Furthermore, these carbonaceous chondrites are full of what we call volatiles. They have water in them. They have minerals that require water to form. They have organic compounds in them, the prebiotic compounds that we need in order for life to have developed. And those are some of the key issues, including, as we said, security, which is we don't understand exactly how asteroids move very well, because we make these predictions about how they're going to possibly hit the Earth in the end of the 22nd century. And we have what we call a probability, but that probability also needs to know what's the composition of the asteroid in order to predict well.
Oh,
but let's back up for a second. The geologist. First, let me celebrate the fact that geologists are now holding hands with astronomers, astrophysicists, to explore the rest of the universe, because we're trained to look up, and we're not trained to understand rocks that might be at our destinations. And so we tag team with you geologists to help us interpret what's out there. But you use the word volatile in a way that the general public does not. To us, if something's volatile, it's like ready to explode.
Unstable.
So, very good point.
Yeah, tell me what you mean by volatile, that a rock would have volatiles.
Yeah, so when we talk about rocks that have volatiles, and we're talking about the kinds of compounds that would quickly evaporate when you raise the temperature of the rock from basically background temperature.
Oh.
Yeah, so water, for example, everybody knows water will boil, at 100 degrees C or 212 Fahrenheit. So, that's something that these rocks contain, and that water is 4.567 roughly billion years old, and was moving around the actual original body, what we call the parent body of the asteroids that we see now. What we see now are basically bits and pieces of what was once much larger bodies that were internally geologically active.
Interesting.
Wow. Okay. So so it's a time machine for you.
Oh, definitely.
It's a time capsule. Capsule. That's
time
right.
Capsule,
and,
better word. Yeah.
And going back to your analogy of the dog pee, many of these, in fact, they get contaminated, the meteorites, as they fall to Earth very, very quickly. So within a day or two, you've already contaminated. You're interacting with the atmosphere. Little microbes start to eat them. I mean, imagine you're sitting around for 4.5 billion years, as Neil said, and you've got nothing to do, nobody to bother you really, except occasional collision and the sun hitting you. So the other idea is to bring back a sample of pristine material, keep it in a nitrogen environment and analyze it. And that turns out to be, as we'll see, absolutely critical to what we have been finding in both asteroid Ryugu sample and, of course, asteroid Bennu sample.
So let me start some trouble. Yeah. What will we find more from? Because a comet has the water, it's ice, right? So what would we benefit more from? A sample collection of an actual asteroid, which we've done. That's what you guys did. Or being able to kind of either trail and capture or capture a piece of a comet, which will give you the water.
Well, that's a great question. And capturing the water and bringing it back to Earth is incredibly tricky. We have sampled from the back of comets in its coma and brought back the minerals that were actually in that comet material, but not the ices. To actually freeze a sample and bring it back is really complicated and really expensive, most likely.
So you're saying it's hard to bring back the volatiles is the point here.
It's hard to bring back the volatiles and the ices and stuff because you got to keep them cold the whole time and keep them cold coming through the atmosphere and then not interact with their Earth too much. Actually, this brings, stop me if you want, but this brings sort of a square root of one question, is that the OSIRIS-REx mission is a special class of missions, which is a sample return mission. Of which, if we don't include the Cold War, Apollo and Luna samples, we've only had a couple of handfuls of those in the course of history. Basically, 3 of them by the U.S., 2 by Japan, and 2 by China. So you're looking at basically a large sack of potatoes of extraterrestrial material that was brought back to Earth, roughly 8 pounds or so of material. That was a little over $2 billion worth of money spent to get these samples back for a scientific community that conservatively probably only 100, maybe 1,500 people in the world work full time at trying to understand.
I don't have a problem with that.
I don't. Last year, the American people spent $4 billion on candy for Halloween.
So let's back up again. Of all the asteroids that orbit the sun, most, of course, are in the asteroid belt. Those are harder to get to, I guess, because a whole bunch of them cross Earth's orbit. So one of them you picked, I happen to know, Bennu crosses Earth's orbit. So is that what makes it a little more attractive and because of how accessible it is?
100%. Our scientific goals were to get to an asteroid. Well, our goals were to get to an asteroid that we could get to safely and come home, and that was within some kind of cost cap or wasn't cost prohibited. And that asteroid we determined to meet our scientific goals has to be a carbonaceous asteroid because we needed to look for what we know already is contained within the asteroids, fragments, meteorites, scourge of life, volatiles, etc.
And just to contrast that with what many people stereotype as an asteroid, a metallic asteroid, and here at the American Museum of Natural History, our 2 biggest asteroids are iron and nickel, and they're huge, some of the biggest, out there. And so many people, when they just come to, to a museum, it's the metal ones that get all the attention, because the other ones just kind of look like rocks. So it seemed to me that it would be harder to sample return from a metallic asteroid because you can't sort of pick up dirt on its surface. Is that a true fact?
I think that's right, Neil. Yeah, we have a mission. NASA has a mission going to study asteroid Psyche, which is supposed to be an iron nickel asteroid, but it's not bringing sample back. It would be a lot harder to drill and actually get a piece of metal out of the asteroid and bring it back.
Just Bruce Willis could take care of that. So we go to this asteroid. If I remember correctly, this mission was a touch and go, right?
Perfect. Yep, it was.
Yeah, and so it comes down, punches up some material, captures it in a capsule. When I rethink what this mission did, I'm just saying, as a matter of fact, it is rocket science, right? So you launch OSIRIS-REx from a moving platform, Earth, to intersect a moving target, Bennu. You do a touch and go, grab material, come back to Earth, deploy the capsule onto a rotating Earth so that it lands where?
Utah desert.
So of all, on the rotating Earth, all this has got to work out. And then that's when my worst nightmares begin, because one of the earliest novels I ever read in my life was Michael Crichton's The Andromeda Strain, where they brought back basically a sample return from, I don't remember where, just from space. And it had a bug that started killing people. And so let me ask you, tell me about NASA's protection protocols for this.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the asteroids are considered non-hazardous with respect to any sort of biological threat. They've been sitting in space for 4.5 billion years and been cooked by the sun's radiation and cosmic rays in the background on the surface, and are deemed not hazardous with respect to any kind of biological issues, right? So planetary bodies like Mars, that's a whole different issue and requires a whole different set of responsibilities and care that have to be taken if you want to bring sample back from there.
So the pictures I saw with people analyzing, maybe your hands were among those, inside that sealed cavity where the dust from the capsule was getting analyzed, that was really just to prevent a sample contamination, not to prevent you from getting some kind of bug.
Right.
How much meteorite material did we bring back?
Roughly 122 grams of material. And that's basically, sounds like it's small, but it's basically a cup full of particles. But that cup full of particles is a lot.
That's
correct.
a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I was going to say, but now when you make the collection, because it is a rock, and I don't know a lot about rocks, but I know some rocks are harder than other rocks. And I also know from a conversation with Neil that some asteroids are kind of like pebbly because they're held together. They're not really a big solid rock. They're kind of pebbly and held together, and it's easy to go in and do whatever you want to do. If we were talking about mining asteroids, if I recall the conversation.
Yeah. So Chuck, very important point there. So Harold, what was your confidence in the structural integrity of Bennu to just come down and do a touch and go? Did you know enough about its structure to know that would succeed in advance?
Yeah, great questions from both of you. First of all, Bennu is what we call a rubble pile asteroid. So it's literally an asteroid made up of accumulation of large boulders and teeny tiny little grains. And it rotates around its own axis in 4.2 hours. Actually, it rotates retrograde, which means opposite than what we normally would think it rotates. And all the information we had designed originally the spacecraft for big ponds on the surface of really fine-grained material. We're talking about less than an inch size material, because our data, our science showed us that there should be a lot of it. We got there, we screamed because there were boulders 11 stories high, and it wasn't quite what we expected. And, the problem is when you fly down to the surface of the asteroid, you may not come back out the same way either. So there's challenges with the navigation that you have to think about. And to get to your questions and your comments here, we had designed the touch and go sample acquisition mechanism to basically just touch the surface, as Neil said, and we fire some nitrogen gas, and it basically fluidizes or moves the gravel up, and then it gets collected into this little sort of reverse Hoover or vacuum head, and then we would pull back. The autonomous spacecraft pulls back from the surface. But what happened was we went in 48 centimeters, length of an arm almost, down into the surface of the asteroid, which wasn't, went right through it, boink, which we did not really expect. Some folks on the mission will say, well, we had some models that showed it could be, but yeah, okay, it could be. But that was a good thing, actually, because it taught us that gravity itself is basically what's holding the asteroid together. Tensile forces between particles is not really doing it very well. Hey, Neil, see, I learned some physics over the last 20 years. And the other thing is we're penetrating deeper into the surface. So the surface of the asteroid is being caught a lot, depending on how much the surface is moving based on the rotation and landslides and impacts. So we're getting down to the stuff that might be fresher, quote, fresher.
So that's better for you.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Wow.
The problem was, and you did ask another question there when I get to that. The problem was that when we pulled back up, and did the first test to see what kind of sample we got, we literally moved that 3-meter arm backwards to a camera to take pictures. And I can remember about 4 o'clock in the morning, waking up and downloading from our mainframe the images and start looking at it. It had all these little spots all over the place. I'm thinking, what the heck are these spots? Long story short, as the world knows, several stones got caught, keeping the flap open. And that we were losing sample every time we articulated the arm.
Wow.
There's another PhD thesis. There's another PhD thesis. Yeah, that was so the PI had to make some quick decisions with the associate administrator of NASA and other people to basically stow the sample much quicker than we had expected to prevent more from loss. But of course, as you know, we got 122 grams of sample, 121.6, and we needed to get 60 grams to meet our scientific goals.
So you bring it back to Earth, and now you've got it in the lab. And so you're a geologist. I don't know. Do you guys use microscopes, or do you use stuff that dissolves the material and you do mass spectrometer? What's a geologist's dream lab when you have something from space?
That's a great question. We brought the sample out of the field. By the way, the sample canister, the SRC sample return capsule, landed in the Utah desert basically perfectly in the end. It had rained there 3 days earlier, but it chose to land in a dry spot, which was perfect. And then we take it to a makeshift facility at the UTTR, Utah Test and Training Range. We get the sample canister and it's, the guts of the sample return capsule out and get it under nitrogen so that the sample is constantly bathed in nitrogen. So, that took literally almost 4 hours to the mark to get that under the perfect timing.
I have a quick chemistry question.
Yeah.
You speak of nitrogen as though it's neutral. And in fact, there's some sort of wine air replacement canisters that send nitrogen in as the air comes out. But to me, nitrogen can make ammonia, nitrous oxide. It's not like argon, where we're taught in chemistry class is just inert. So why does nitrogen work for you? I just never understood that chemically.
In this case, we have the samples of the nitrogen, so we know what the composition of the nitrogen is. Not just nitrogen, but its isotope composition. If there's any impurities in it, which of course is not, and it doesn't react with normal minerals and rocks in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
I shouldn't say normal. I shouldn't say normal. There's nothing normal about an asteroid sample. Typical. And then we get to I'll just tell you real quick. Then we get to the lab. We open up the canister, and the first thing you do as a geologist is you look at it with your eye. The most important thing is that it's a rock. Before you begin to slice it up to make polished sections, before you send it off to the folks at Goddard Space Flight Center to analyze organics, before they dissolve it up to get their analysis, you must know what the rock is, because the context is absolutely critical. Without the context of the rock, you may not be able to interpret your results.
So different labs had different objectives in the samples that they were given.
Correct.
Okay. Is it possible that your priors, I don't mean to get philosophical on you, but is it possible that your prior expectations for what the sample is can bias your conclusions that you draw from it?
100%. We had if I may, we had an amazing aha moment when we discovered, which we should have more or less known we were going to discover, but because we find so few of these minerals in meteorites that we pick up on Earth, it didn't kind of process that the asteroid samples could be rich in evaporite minerals. What is an evaporite mineral? A mineral that forms in a water-rich solution as that water evaporates. A classic example, table salt.
Right. Absolutely.
Table salt is in the rocks from Bennu. It's in the rocks from Rugu.
Just to alert our our listeners and viewers, when a geologist analyzes a sample, in most cases, the sample is destroyed when you're done. Isn't that correct?
Well, yes and no, actually, because I'm the kind of geologist that's called a petrologist, and my job is to tell the stories that the rock contain. And that means looking at them with my eye, looking at them with a microscope, as Neil said, and then actually cutting them and polishing them and looking at them with a special microscope, either one that's optical that sees through to the thin coatings of the rock on basically a glass slide, or put them in an electron microscope or a scanning electron microscope, where then you begin to analyze in detail their composition of the minerals and how the minerals arrange themselves and why they're the way they are. All these little details, it's like being a detective. The tiniest little clue may actually open up a whole world of being able to understand geology. Now, other scientists do dissolve sample. But if you dissolve the sample without knowing what you dissolved, other than it came from this mountain, I mean, how many different layers of rock are in the mountain? And you say it came from that mountain. Well, I don't know where it came from. That doesn't help you recreate the geology and then put it into context of a special question, such as, looking at the potential origins of what we know is life.
So I don't mean to diss your entire profession, but most people, when we look out into space rocks, we're kind of interested in the organics, not in the minerals. And I know geologists love them some minerals, but at the end of the day, the headline is not what kind of new rock you found. It's what kind of organics might be there. Yeah. So how close were you to that analysis, or was that a whole other group?
So that's a very good point you raise. And the problem with the organic chemistry, well, not a problem, but the challenge is that you have to know what the rock is that you're analyzing. What processes, geologic processes has it been through? In order to know the geologic processes that rock has been to, in this case, in a parent body that was probably the size of Ceres, the asteroid Ceres, for example, that fluid moved through that asteroid 4.5 billion years ago because the asteroid became active. When the asteroid accreted rock in the earliest time period, it accreted ices, not just water ice, but ammonia, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, etc. And then the asteroid internally began to heat up, and you have fluid moving through. Now, why is that any relevance whatsoever to prebiotic compounds? Because prebiotic compounds may very well have formed in that aqueous or water-rich environment. The evaporite minerals that we talked about are the late-stage product of the fluid that moved through, that formed other minerals first, and they're the very last stage. Now, if you're an organic chemist and you want to get organics to come out of a solution, one of the classic methods of doing that in the laboratory is you salt the solution. And the organics go with the evaporite minerals or the salt when you evaporate the fluid.
I got to correct you on something. You called Ceres an asteroid, but it got promoted to dwarf planet.
Dwarf planet.
We're right. I'm sorry.
Just remind people it's the only asteroid that's large enough for its gravity to have shaped it into a sphere, and that's a sufficient qualifications to be a dwarf planet, just like Pluto. So, what do we know? I think I seem to remember a research paper, or it might have just been a review in the New York Times that talked about, what was it, amino acids that were found in the rock?
Yeah, we've found a lot in the rock, and we're finding more. And they also found a lot of organic compounds, because we're talking about organic compounds, and the minerals associated with them in the Ryugu sample. The difference is that in Hayabusa 2, which was a JAXA mission to asteroid Ryugu that brought back sample, they brought back 5.2 grams. So they have a lot less. So for us, we were able to do work for organics on individual stones from Bennu, and also homogenized powder of more than 6 grams that we homogenized up to really understand the chemistry well. And indeed, they have found that the main headlines is, 14 of the 20 amino acids that are needed for life, but really it's probably 15, because a paper by Maharo et al. That came out in November found the 15th one, and we have to reproduce it, but that was right near Thanksgiving, and that 15th one was tryptophan, which is the same stuff you get in turkeys that make you sleepy.
I forgot that tryptophan is an amino acid. I've forgotten that. And the famous one from Jurassic Park is, of course, lysine. We wanted to make sure that the dinosaurs were dependent on that, and therefore they would die had they escaped. So Harold, I remember, because I'm that old, back in the 90s when we analyzed ALH, this potato-shaped meteorite on Earth, which was deduced that it came from Mars. And I thought it was brilliant. They found a little air inclusions within it and analyzed it, had the exact atmospheric composition of Mars. So this rock came from Mars, and there was no dispute about that. But it also had some inclusions within it that, if memory serves, it had oxidized minerals sitting right adjacent to non-oxidized minerals. And typically, in any geologic environment that you have, it's either oxygen rich or not, right? And if it's oxygen rich, then everything gets oxidized. And if it's oxygen poor, then nothing is oxidized. But life does both in the same vessel, right? We inhale and oxidize our hemoglobin, and then the oxygen gets ripped away. Hemoglobin goes back for more oxygen. So we have oxidized and non-oxidized molecules in the very same vessel. So the fact that they were together on the rock would require you to believe, if you're going to explain it abiotically, that the rock was like over here for a while and was getting oxygenated, and then it rolled somewhere else where there was no oxygen, and then it had some other participating molecules. You have to really Rube Goldberg your way into that answer. So with these inclusions at this new site on Mars, at the Chiava Falls site, if you find more than that, it might be really hard, if not impossible, to completely explain it abiotically. So do you know what else was discovered in those inclusions?
Yeah. So the report the report talked about basically the byproducts of breaking down fatty acids, if my memory serves me right, and alkenes, and some single sort of chain organic molecules. I think that's one of the other data points that they're using to, the scientists who wrote that paper are using to argue that there's additional evidence of potential biological processes that were around at that time, 80 million years ago, which is the Cretaceous period here on Earth. So here on Earth, dinosaurs would have been walking around at that same time period. And that's a lot younger than the 84 Allen Hills 84 on that rock is, because that's about 4.1 or 2 billion years old, that rock. So the likelihood, at least more confidence can be given that that's a nicer way to construct a hypothesis. But again, we still have so much to learn about the formation of organic compounds in the relationship to geology and the rocks. And to go off too much in one direction or the other, I think the middle path is required here.
Ryugu, whose mission was that one?
So the JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, has had two sample return missions. Hayabusa 1, which went to an asteroid called Itokawa and brought back teeny tiny little grains because the collecting mechanism didn't quite work the way it was supposed to. So then Hayabusa 2, which went to the carbonaceous asteroid Ryugu, which was actually OSIRIS-REx's backup plan in case we couldn't figure out how to get to Bennu. And they chose Ryugu and went to Ryugu and came home basically earlier than we did. The analysis started in June of 2021, and I was living in Tokyo at that time period for the beginning of the analysis of their sample from asteroid Ryugu. Now think about that. It was a pandemic.
Yeah, of course. Just to sort of celebrate the scientific profession, tell me what role the researcher Ryugu played in your guys' approach to Bennu, because one mission stands on the shoulders of the previous mission. That's how science works. So were you able to answer or ask different questions of your samples because of what was learned in the previous sample returns?
Yeah, it's both scientific, engineering, and cultural in the exchange. We had co-eyes on each other's team, which means members of each other's teams. I was a member on both teams, and Shogo Teshibana from the University of Tokyo was a member on OSIRIS-REx, as well as in charge of analysis and sample for Hayabusa 2. And indeed, the early analysis of their sample, which they analyzed only 100 milligrams of, we had 15 grams to work with ours. And actually, we were good boys and girls and didn't even get to 13 and managed to get our goals achieved. And they informed us on what the chemistry we should expect, what the minerals are we should expect, and how to take a deep dive into certain areas that turned out to be very important for findings, as you just talked about moments ago. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, is it true that every asteroid is the fragment of some larger parent body that got shattered early in the solar system? And I ask that because Bennu, last I checked, is bigger than the Empire State Building, something like 500 meters across. And so that seems like a big enough body to be its own body in the universe. But tell me, turn the clock back on this. Was there some protoplanet that had already sort of, as the geologists say, differentiated its materials and then shattered to become Bennu? And if that's the case, you might be able to find other rocks that are like Bennu that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely great question. First of all, the main type of meteorite we find on Earth that's like Bennu is called a CI-like meteorite. And there's only 2 handfuls of them in existence. And it's very clear from both studying the sample from Ryugu and the sample from Bennu that our sample collection is biased on Earth. Not only is the sample collection contaminated, but what actually is out in space is biased because we have a lot of carbonaceous asteroids. Now, turn the clock backward. Bennu is fragments from collisions that occurred of different bodies together. One of those bodies was a parent body, as we call a previous incarnation of Bennu at a much larger scale. And that was something that was indeed, forming probably some of the early protoplanets that may have existed. And once the objects get to a certain size, around 10 kilometers or so in diameter, the internal mechanism begins to turn on for geologic process. That internal mechanism is heat begins to move around. That's generated from the decay of radioactivity and pressure.
It becomes a cosmic body at that level.
Becomes a cosmic body. It begins to melt the ices that were accreted with it. It begins to have fluid, and we call that the early stages of metamorphism in geology. And the early stages of metamorphosis is that fluid moves through and begins to interact with the minerals that are there. And it begins to change those minerals and pick up different kinds of chemicals as it's moving through the fluid. It moves in different parts of the asteroid because it cracked and all kinds of things that happen. And then what we think happened is that at some point, the poor parent body asteroid gets collided into with something else, and it stops the process. So you have a snapshot in geologic time of that moment that all the processes geologically were active, stopped.
Wow.
Because it's not big enough to sustain it anymore, and it gets frozen in that state.
It got knocked up, and got banged around, and that's it. So
yeah. So because it's relatively recent in my professional life, last several decades, that we came to learn that star systems, like we take the solar system for example, with its 8 planets. If you run the models, that star systems such as ours likely began with like 30 planets or something, or planetesimals, and many of those orbits are just unstable and they collide with each other and it gets resolved. And so it takes a while for that to sort of shake out and find out who's left. Don't you even have, there's some asteroids where there look like there are 2 pieces that are stuck together that didn't break apart?
Well, yeah, there are also asteroids that have satellites that go around from collisions, most likely. So,
right.
Even asteroid Bennu, although we don't have a satellite, didn't find a satellite, it was geologically active on the surface, and we had these explosions that pushed material up, which was not cometary-like. But we had looked, going back to the comet discussion, we had looked for cometary action because one of the hypotheses for Bennu before we got there was it could have been an extinct comet core. But it isn't. At least most of us will say it is.
Right. It's not a clean boundary between asteroids and comets, right?
No, sir.
Yeah.
It is not.
Yeah.
You know that better now. Yep, it is not.
Yeah. So now when we think of life, I think of, we're carbon based. That's, everybody knows that. And we eat food and we have crops and we eat plants and animals. And I always see phosphorus showing up as some key ingredient. And not being a biologist, I've never fully come to appreciate what role that plays. So could you just tell me about phosphorus? I know it's an element on the periodic table. And did you find it in this asteroid sample? And what role does it play in sustaining life as we know it?
Right. So let's go back to, again, the square root of 1, and that phosphorus is, of course, one of the elements on the periodic table, as you said. And the accretion time period of the asteroid, you have all this material accreting, which contains all the different elements that we have on our table, to some extent, not things like hydrogen and helium and stuff. Then as time goes on, minerals start to form through the interaction of water with these rocks that we talked about. And that water is moving through with different, what I call nutrients. In this case, it's not for biological system, but geologic system. And things like sodium, like in sodium chloride, table salt, and chlorine and phosphorus are in this fluid. And then
I love that reference to geologic nutrients. That's a cool.
So there's a whole sequence that forms of these different minerals, the calcium-rich ones, then the phosphorus-rich ones, right? And they go down through what's left in the fluid to come out of the fluid and start forming new minerals. So you get things like sodium, etc. And phosphorus is one of those key minerals that makes things like phosphates. And of course, phosphorus is one of the key kind of elements that gets bound together with things like carbon and hydrogen, etc., to form prebiotic compounds that are important. And it's the whole suite of these evaporite minerals, not just the phosphate. The phosphorus is critical, though, but it's not just that. It's a whole suite of them that we, as life, have to have in different ways, in different proportions. Now, I'm not a biologist, so keep that in mind.
Yeah. So tell me about pre-solar grains. There's a lot of research papers on this. In fact, we have some on display here at the Rose Center for Earth and Space. In fact, they're pre-solar diamonds, I think. And there's some, and I think it's kind of cool. I just don't know its relevance. It's cool to think of grains that might have predated the formation of the solar system, which gets you even farther back than the 4.5 billion years. So I think that's kind of cool. But is it just sort of cool to know, or does it have other relevance to any of this?
Well, I mean, they're saying better than I, we are stardust. We are made up of stardust, right? And stardust means dust that literally comes from stars, either evolving stars or dying stars that eject material. And in that ejection, that gas that comes out, like the fluid with minerals condensing, these new minerals condense out of the gas. And these are from stars that are not part of our solar system, and seeded what was there in the beginning before our solar system formed, which was a molecular cloud. And there are different kinds of pre-solar grains. Diamonds are one of them. Yeah, downstairs in the museum's meteorite hall, there are diamonds in a little capsule in there, which is fantastic. It looks like a slip, like a grayish mixture inside of the little vial. There are silicon carbide grains, but then there are what we call corundum, or little teeny tiny, and we're talking really so small, smaller than what we can see certainly with the naked eye, nanometer size.
Isn't some of these that you're describing used as fake diamonds on Earth?
That's ruby or sapphire is what that is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there are silicates. Silicates being the most abundant minerals that we see on Earth, like quartz is a silicate mineral, for example. Olivine or peridot, the gemstone peridot is another one. So these grains predate the origin of the solar system, and they provided the nutrients, if you will, for the beginning of the formation of rocky materials and minerals in this solar system, because everything got crunched as the gas began to collapse to form the sun, and things heated up, and then they cooled down and stuff came out. But these grains survived that process. So they're actually older than our solar system, which is really, really cool. And there are people who spend their whole life studying these pre-solar grains, and it's incredible. And just one more point about the pre-solar grains is that we find them in the meteorites. That means they survive the geologic processes, such as the water moving through or heat beginning to generate. And many of them survive to different degrees, depending on where we're getting the sample from and what was the original parent body.
Wow.
So let's pivot to other places where these search for ingredients of life have been in the news, such as Mars. Right? We're not quite there yet with Europa. We've got a nice Clipper mission en route. we have a whole episode of StarTalk where we toured the Jet Propulsion Labs and spoke to the folks. It was right around the launch time of the Europa Clipper mission to look for life with ice penetrating radar, to look under the ice, that icy moon with its ocean of liquid water. But if we go to Mars, where there's no water today, but such ample evidence that there was once running water, do you compare notes with your fellow Mars geologists or Marsologists, whatever the word is you might call them, to see? Because I remember there's a recent news where there were some inclusions in some kind of clay or something that people felt pretty sure is a record of some kind of microbial life thriving in a distant past. And they're inclusions that only a geologist would recognize as being something interesting. And then you pair that up with the biologists, and all the astronomer can do is just watch you guys have a conversation about it.
Yeah, I like the way you drew that. That's so from lessons learned from analyzing Bennu, for example, and Ryugu, and there's several more papers coming out in the near future from the OSIRIS-REx mission that are going to detail even more interesting results about prebiotic compounds. So keep to the literature for that. Look for that very soon.
And just to be clear for everyone in this modern era, it means a research paper with many collaborators that has been submitted for peer review, has been revised according to whatever the peer review might have recommended. Then it shows up in the journal, online or otherwise. And that then gets disseminated around the world for others to comment on, to stand on the shoulders of what was there. That's what's going on here.
So on that area of Mars, what was it called? I forgot. Chiana Falls, is that what it was? Yeah. The minerals that were there in large veins of what are probably a mineral called gypsum and associated minerals are minerals that form through a fluid. Precipitation, they're evaporite minerals. They have to come out of this fluid that is there, and the fluid's evaporating. And other minerals that are there, such as vivianite, which is a phosphate mineral. Here we go, phosphorus again, one of the key ingredients for life.
Isn't gypsum on the Mohs scale? I have some memory of that.
You got that right.
Gypsum is very soft. It's like one or two. Right.
It's a hydrated mineral, so it has water attached to it, which makes its structure.
And then grigite is another mineral that form, and that's an iron sulfur-rich mineral. But that is an interesting mineral because it's on a pathway. The final product forming would be pyrite, which everybody knows as school scope. The mineral before that is macanaurite, big name, but that mineral was recently discovered in both Ryugu and Bennu for the first time. Now, why is this mineral grigite important? Because it's sampling different abundances of oxygen that is around in order to produce itself.
Okay. Now, oxygen is not uncommon in the universe, but it's highly reactive, right? So it's going to be binding with almost everything. And so where's it getting its oxygen from? What's its source?
Oh, that's a great question. We assume it's coming from a fluid interaction, a fluid that has evolved. But how that fluid's evolving, I don't know. When that fluid evolved, I don't know. And the landscape certainly is such that fluid was moving around, water.
In the Cheva Falls, in those deposits, I don't know, is that the right word? Inclusions,
yeah. The sedimentary rock deposits.
Yeah. Are you convinced that there was an active biota in the distant past from that evidence? Or is there another way to explain that does not involve life? Because life would be extraordinary and fun, but you geologists have all kinds of ways you can make stuff, even without life.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if life was actually part of that process, but I'm not going to eliminate it as a scientist from that process. It could be what we call abiotic or not requiring life. But it may be that life was there. There are other evidence to suggest that and I don't know the details of the organic compounds. There's simple organic compounds that were also found there that may indicate that life was there. But as we know from working with Bennu, we're beginning to understand that the organic compounds that we're finding in Bennu are much greater than what we see in the meteorites, and the process which formed them most likely it occurred inside of a great parent body or on on surface or subsurface of Mars, for example, or Earth. And that is an important punctuation point that we have to know. Meteorites are definitely contaminated. So we're learning a lot about organic chemistry in the solar system, in the prebiotic chemistry from the meteorites, from the asteroid samples, that the meteorites are definitely contaminated.
So if you look at that and you look at, let's say you find these evidences on Mars, and then we already know that they're in the asteroids. Is that, I don't want to make a big leap, would that be any indication that there is this so-called lithopanspermia that seeds planets like ours to create life? Or would it mean that, hey man, this is just the stuff that shows up under the right conditions, doesn't make a difference where you are?
Yeah, that's a great question. The latter is certainly more or less what we've kind of been leaning towards here, in that the asteroids themselves could be seeding Mars and Earth with the prebiotic compounds that are needed for life to have evolved. But I'm old enough to know that we have meteorites from Mars on the surface of Earth. And I'm old enough to know that there was a time period when certain physicists said you couldn't get rocks off of Mars to Earth. And when we finally proved that these are, essentially proved to a high level of confidence that these are from Mars, the calculations showed that you can. So it's certainly not impossible, but I mean, why go there when we can go with a more simple answer, at least at first, to eliminate that? But yeah.
So I found a fascinating concept. Let me just share it with you and tell me if you agree. So the biologist sees life on Earth, and we don't see life elsewhere as thriving as it is on Earth. So it's easy to just come up with the singular genesis of life on Earth by whatever cause. Then you have to, and we know how complex the DNA molecule is. So we can ask ourselves, could that have happened on any other surface of any other planet? And we say, look how complex it is. No, it's unlikely. However, geologic processes, I can send you to any planet and you'll be familiar. There might be some fun, interesting things you've only read about or heard about in abundance there, but geology, when you subject minerals and ingredients to the same temperatures, pressures, will get you the same results every time. So if you create a biological analog to that and say, given the right temperatures and pressures and time, you'll make a DNA molecule every time. What do you say to that? That maybe, if geology is universal,
for geology, why wouldn't it do it for us?
Why wouldn't it do it for biology? Yeah.
The short answer is yes.
I have an issue with the panspermia hypothesis.
Okay.
So life begins in one location and then spreads to other location, which, by the way, I don't think getting back to your ignorant physicist comment, I think no one knew how to do that until we can computer model major impacts on planetary surfaces that can then fling rocks back into space. And you couldn't just deduce that. You had to calculate what happens to the energy of the impactor and how it gets manifested. So in all fairness to the ignorant physicists, in your defense, one of our greatest physicists, Lord Kelvin, of the Kelvin temperature scale, was telling geologists said, look, we need 1 billion years to make these ravines. We need 1 billion years. And the biologists were saying, we need 1 billion years to evolve everything. And he was saying, I'm only giving you 10 million years because that's the lifetime of the sun. And there's no way we can make the sun live longer than that. And so that he got his, ass handed to him when we discovered that there's thermonuclear fusion in the sun. And there's a whole other thing that was discovered after he made this proclamation. So, but he had the cockiness of a physicist, knowing that physics is pretty fundamental. So my issue with panspermia is, if you can make amino acids on rocks in space or in the parent body from which it came, you can make amino acids on Earth without the rock. Earth has got all the same ingredients and then some. So this urge to appeal to panspermia, for me, seemed less urgent. The urge was less urgent when I look at it that way. So maybe the argument in favor of it is really, really hard to make life. So if it happens in one place, the chances are it's not going to happen in other places. And if it's going to get there, it's going to have to travel. I think that's the argument in favor of panspermia. But yeah, because if it's easy to make amino acids, but harder to make a DNA molecule, maybe that's what it comes down to.
There's one little catch to that in the sense of geology, in that the oldest rocks we have on Earth are from 4 to about 4.4 billion years, which is one of many reasons we study Bennu samples, Ryugu samples, and meteorites. Because in part, the Earth is dynamic, it's active, it's moving, the surface is constantly moving, but also the very, few tens of millions of years of the Earth's existence, the surface was really molten before the crust formed. And that's what a lot of the scientific hypotheses hit at, that it was cooked too much for these kinds of compounds to survive on Earth. Now, maybe inside is another issue, and maybe the meteorites coming down and seeding after the cooling happened, either on Earth or on Mars, is much more probable now than it was, I think, before we flew both missions. And in fact, we have sugar too now. We have RNA sugars. That's a really big deal too.
Of course, as scientists, we need to be sort of skeptical of extraordinary claims. If life can explain some of this evidence, can you get to that same evidence by not invoking life at all?
Well, that's what we're learning from the study of Bennu samples and Ryugu samples. And I can't give you an answer yes or no, but looking like a lot of the ingredients, yes, they can happen abiotically. At least the ingredients for life. What happens after life comes about, how it changes that is another issue. But that is where we're going right now.
As a person who is in front of the public explaining all of this, I have challenges because, for example, when we see methane on Mars, and we know methane is a product of anaerobic metabolism, right? The microbes operate anaerobically, releasing methane. And so, but yet the surface of Saturn's moon Titan has lakes of liquid methane. And so, but there are no cows on Titan that we know of. So clearly methane is coming from non-biotic means. And so it's, to jump for joy when we see a chemical signature of something that we know can come from life, we have to be very honest about all the ways that it might not.
Yeah, I think that's also, I think, to bring it back a little bit to Bennu, I think that's why it's also so important that we know the context of what we're analyzing and understand very clearly what kind of geologic processes occurred to that particular rock or rocks. Because organic chemists, for example, they don't know geology. They don't need to know the geology, but we geologists have been very poor over the course of time at explaining what we mean when we say things are geologically processed. And it's much more complicated than what often is interpreted either by the organic chemist, biologist, or even the general public. So we have to be very careful about that.
Now, at the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned the possibility or being cautious about a rock that might hit Earth by 2200. The next close encounter, if my records are correct, is in 2182 for Bennu. And given our orbital uncertainties, I think there's a chance it could hit Earth in 2182. That should be plenty of time to build a defense system to deflect it. It should be, unless funding continues to wane. So, but as geologists, you probably don't think much about asteroid collisions the way the astronomers do. Is that correct?
Probably. We look at what's left over.
So the probability that I last remembered, maybe it's been refined since I last checked it.
You're absolutely right, Neil. Yeah.
It was a 1 in 2,700 chance of hitting Earth in September of 2182. It sounds like, that won't happen then, but there are people who go to Vegas betting on way worse odds than that, expecting to win. So these are near-Earth asteroids that we want to keep an eye on. And the more we know about them, the more we can maybe go back to them in the future and nudge them out of harm's way.
That's right. 100%. You got it. Yep. Now that we understand the composition better, that's a refined value that you gave. And that's probably as accurate as we're going to get, which is pretty accurate because I think it's September 24th of that year. The prediction is. So that's pretty accurate, but I may be wrong. But
yeah. Just to bring this to closure, could you just reflect on where you guys are as geologists? When I think of the history of collaborations, if we go back before 1968 and the photo of Earthrise over the lunar surface, it was not until NOAA was founded in the year 1970 that I ever saw the ocean and the atmosphere in the same phrase. NOAA is National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And my sense was they were ocean scientists and they were atmosphere scientists. And of course, you have geologists on the land. And then as time moved on, the interplay of these major forces on Earth's surface required you guys to play nice in the sandbox. And then eventually we find, is it more than half of the biotic mass on Earth is below Earth's surface? There's some staggering fraction of the mass of biology below Earth's surface, which means the geologist has to walk in the room and have something to say about that. So could you just reflect on the state of collaborations among the biologists, the geologists, and of course the astrofolk today?
Right. I think because of these sample return missions and other space missions, we're really an exciting time period in our history. And the way to get to this is simply talk about the connection between life and prebiotic compounds. We know life exists. We know that the prebiotic compounds exist, and there's a gap between the two. How do you get from one to the other, right? And in the middle of that gap, we know you need things like oxygen, you need water, you need energy. But everybody forgets that to get that, what you need is a planet. And understanding how planets are formed and the baseline geology that then the final baseline below geology, the physics can all play into, and then work with the astronomers, the remote sensors, the biologists to put our various hypotheses together to test them with our knowledge in a big picture scope.
Because, of course, the universe doesn't care about how we have divided our sciences. Yeah. Well, Howard, this has been a delight for you to participate in this conversation. I've long wanted to do a show on Bennu, and because it's been in the news a bit now. So I'm glad we could speak about it with the benefit of the analysis that has been ongoing. And just to toot the horns of scientists, I presume that parts of your sample return from Bennu have been shared with other labs so that whatever your results are could be verified?
Right. Yeah. So NASA archives about 70% of the sample. The sample team, analysis team, doesn't get more than a very small amount of the total sample. And then we had it exclusively for a 2-year period. And then the community at large, scientists at large, begin to apply for samples at Johnson Space Center, that they can look up samples in the catalog. And then they're all currently, those people who have samples from around the world that are not part of the science team for OSIRIS-REx, but our team at Global 2, are analyzing the sample as we speak. And several papers have already been submitted to those scientific journals to talk about their findings in print. And yeah, it's incredible. And
that's how science works.
Science works. Yeah. Our government shared sample with the Japanese government as well, and our Japanese colleagues, meaning OSIRIS-REx sample and Hayabusa sample, were shared, and each nation is also looking at their samples as well. So it's great.
As science, that's how science works. The path to objective truths in this world is not from any one lab. What will you be doing in London? You're headed off there now?
Yeah, first let me say thank you very much for the invitation and to join you both. It's been a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot myself, and I really appreciate your kindness. And I'm going to London for a 3-month stay at the Natural History Museum in London, where we'll be going back to the square root of one and taking what we learned from studying asteroid Bennu and asteroid Rubius samples back into the lab and looking at our meteorite collections And then I'll be doing a bunch of lectures around the UK as well on Osiris Rex. So it's time to go have a little bit of rest and recharge the batteries.
Where's our best source to keep current with Bennu? Is there a JPL have a page on that, or is it Johnson? Or do you have a page from your lab that you co-founded?
Yeah, I post some things on my website, and generally different members of the team. We have no centralized area other than NASA making its usual the posts about what we find. So,
and your website is what?
It's Harold Connolly at WordPress.com. Yeah.
WordPress. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All good, sir.
I try to keep it updated, but I'm bad at it.
Excellent. Thank you for this.
Nice.
All right.
That's right.
We got a special edition here.
What do we got?
This is on the future of growing food. See, I would say it's the future of growing vegetables because you're not growing a cow. So, Gary, take us into this. What do you have?
All right, let me just stop laughing. Right, at-home farming or homesteading has seen an uptick in popularity in the past few years, which begs the question, where can we grow plants? Is there a limit to where we can? We'll get into fake light versus real light, soil science, and the science of why our guest, who you'll introduce shortly, can grow a whole farm in his backyard. How big is his yard? And with some of us can hardly keep a cactus alive, this guy's growing a farm in his backyard. Amazing. Where does the future of farming and sustainability actually take us?
I'm ready to get all in this because I think about this topic all the time. So we've got gardening YouTuber extraordinaire, Kevin Espiritu. Kevin, welcome to StarTalk.
What is up, gentlemen? Glad to be here.
All right. You're calling in from where? Where are you?
I'm in San Diego, California, which in gardening world is called Zone 10B. And I'll get to that in a second, but it's a great climate for growing.
But first, how big is your backyard?
Yeah.
The backyard I'm growing in now, it's about a third of an acre lot.
I'm delighted to learn that because that means it's hope for people who don't have large real estate that's out there.
And you can have a garden anywhere, man.
Yeah, because when I think of farming, I think of huge fields, factory farming, big aggregate business.
Yeah.
So tell us where do you come to this with what you do in your back 1/3? Give us an overview of what you got going in the back 1/3.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it didn't start out that way. I started growing in an apartment. Then I moved to like a small kind of front yard lot, like 15 by 30 feet.
Interesting.
I grew enough in that space to poorly survive off for about a month, but we could talk about that in a bit. But now I'm on a third of an acre. And because we have a YouTube channel and we grow a lot of different crops, we're not necessarily growing it like an urban farm might, but we definitely could. Like there's enough space there to grow hundreds and hundreds of pounds of produce per year. And if you're living there with yourself and a partner or something, that's enough produce to live off of. But I've got, 30 fruit trees, 30 different fruit trees.
Excellent.
About half of them are citrus because it's San Diego and, you can pull citrus off there.
Right.
And then I've got maybe like 40 or 50 different annual crops that I'm growing depending on the season.
Remind me, annual, you have to replant every year.
Annuals, they're going to live and die in a single spring to fall sort of cycle.
Whereas
perennials come back every year.
Gotcha.
Perennials are going to come back every year. And then, you get into some like weird sort of situations where there's like a self-sowing annual, like chamomile. That'll produce its seed at the end of the season. It's going to drop, go dormant, it'll come back. Yeah. So the whole project was like this idea of how far can you take being so-called self-sufficient on like a standard urban lot. So I've got chickens on the property. I've got rainwater capture. I've got gray water conversion. So taking like shower and laundry water and actually using that on the property instead of
in the apocalypse. What's your address?
So let me ask you about the gray water because that's interesting. Isn't gray water contaminated, and what exactly do you use it for?
It is like semi-contaminated, hence the gray. Because like if you were going to use sink water, which is considered black water, you wouldn't use that. You're not really allowed to.
Okay.
So what I did is, for my indoor shower and an outdoor shower that I have a valve that I can turn. It's like a 3-way valve. So I can either shunt the water to the city or I can go into, in my case, my orchard is where I send it because fruit trees need a lot of water.
Right.
The only thing you have to do is change the detergents that you're using.
So you're saying sink water is called black water?
Yeah, because I think it's just because of the different things that end up going down the sink ends up being
sorry. The water that comes out of the sink.
Out of the sink.
I thought you were talking about the water goes in the sink in black water.
Not the faucet.
Not the stuff you drink. Right. Okay, got it. Okay, where's rainwater off your roof? What's that?
Rainwater off your roof, I think it's just captured rainwater.
That's captured rainwater.
Okay.
The beauty of that is like the house I bought is like 1,000 square feet. It's not big. So the roof is 1,000 square feet. And I believe it's like an inch of water on 1,000 square foot roof is 600 gallons. It's a crazy amount when you think about it, because an inch isn't that much rain. And so what I did is I built a system to pull that water off the roof, filter it, because you're going to get like particulate matter, you're going to get leaves and stuff like
leaves
that.
And crap.
Yeah, so it'll filter it, and then it goes under the ground to a huge cistern in my backyard.
Okay, so you have a cistern, and because the other way you can do it is a bladder. There are some people that use like it's just a flat, looks like a hot water bottle, and then the captured rainwater ends up going into that, and then they somehow pump it out to whatever they have to use.
Yeah. You can do it that way, or you can do like rain barrels off of certain areas. Like I've got a shed that isn't connected to that roof system, so I've got a rain barrel on that shed.
Very nice. That's cool, man.
And you said you could send water back to the city. Do they pay you for that water?
You can't send water back to the city. What I mean by that is like, let's say my laundry machine, which has a gray water system on it. If I'm running, let's say a load of laundry that requires a detergent that I don't really want in the ground, then I'll just turn the valve and it'll send that water output to the city.
So let me ask you a conservation question. Are you seeing, because some people just don't give a damn, let's be honest, they just don't care, all right? But everybody cares about their money, all right? Are you seeing any significant savings in doing all of this?
In water, so I did the math. I have it on our second YouTube channel where I kind of chronicled it over the years. I put a bunch of solar on the roof. That has ended up being a good investment. That's paid itself off over the last like 5 years or so.
Very good.
The water ends up being so inexpensive that putting in, let's say, a 2,000 gallon or $2,000 cistern, you will not pay that off for a very long time. So it's more of like a security or sustainability move that you're actually paying for rather than like saving money.
Gotcha. And just so I understand, your solar panels, when it's raining, are not gathering sunlight, but they are directing water that falls upon them into your gutters so that you can collect it.
Right. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Just to be clear.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, people, just if you don't mind, if you'll indulge me, solar energy is the cheapest energy on the planet. Don't let anybody tell you differently. There's nothing cheaper than solar energy.
Kevin, are you finding people are following your lead with this sort of project? Because it's not so much the financial investment, which we've kind of touched on, but people may not understand just how easy or how complicated it can be to install this sort of facility.
Yeah, I mean, I think showing it from the perspective of me who, like I was saying, prior to buying the house, I had a 15 by 30 square foot garden in my urban yard in San Diego. So when I bought the house, I was learning everything about owning a house at the same time as I was putting out all the videos. And so I think just learning in public, which is always what I've done on the channel, has inspired people to be like, it's really not that hard. It seems overwhelming. It's really not that bad. You can start small. Obviously, I went extreme. Our channel is called Epic Gardening after all. But, condensing that back down to like a simple barrel or, a little cistern here or there, I've gotten tons and tons of pictures of people doing it.
And by the way, let me just reaffirm what you just said. If you learn along with your viewers, that's a bond that is forever, because you're like garden buds at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. I mean, I don't have like a formal training in gardening. I got into it because I was addicted to playing video games and I wanted to get off the computer.
Okay.
And so once I got into it,
admit it, your mama kicked you out of the basement.
So I'm an avid gardener. I love it.
It doesn't show.
It does not. You would never look at me and think this guy gardens. And I don't plant vegetables. My mother had an awesome vegetable garden growing up, but she also had a rose garden as well, which roses, F them, they suck. Because I tried to plant one and they hate me. But anyway, gardening is probably one of the most relaxing, rewarding endeavors that anyone can partake at, period. I don't know why I'm saying this.
Are you old school? Drill a hole, plant a seed, water something, walk away, come back, rinse, repeat? Or are we into some very more modern techniques?
Yeah, are you inventing new methods, tools, and tactics?
I wouldn't be as bold as to say I've invented anything all that crazy in the gardening world. Definitely some weird tactics. Like we put a video up a couple of days ago about growing zucchini vertically, which is it's a curcubit squash style plant. So it wants to kind of sprawl out,
yes,
which can be annoying. And then there's this whole meme in the gardening world of leave a squash on your neighbor's like doorstep day. because by the end of summer, you just get so many squash that you're sick of them. Yeah, you get it, Chuck, right? Like as a gardener, you're like, okay, I have way too many squash. I don't need these. But if you go to someone who doesn't garden and you give it to them, you look like this saint, you know, they grew this for me. And you're like, this is just my, you know, when I started gardening, I didn't even have the 15 by 30 spot that I was telling you guys about. I was living in a condo townhouse with a north facing balcony. There was no light whatsoever.
All right, well, talk about that, man, because honestly, I'm going to say for a lot of people listening to us, you know, our concentrations are in cities, big audiences. I mean, that I've never done as much as I love gardening. It sounds like more of a pain than anything to have a box garden on a balcony. What did you grow and how did you maintain it?
I mean, I really didn't even have much of a balcony to get light. And so I was Googling around back then. This was like maybe 13 years ago. I was like, well, how do you grow plants without light from the sun? And the answer was hydroponics. And I, being like a kid who grew up with an obsession of like growing crystals and all sorts of different science things, I was like, okay, let's go ahead and do it. And so I did it with my brother, and I got a 5-gallon bucket, filled that bucket with water. I put something called an air stone in, kind of like the thing you'd see in an aquarium that's oxygenating the water. I put some nutrients in that water, and I put a grow light on top of it, and I grew probably the world's worst tasting cucumbers of all time. Nice. And I fed them to my brother, and he said he almost threw up. But I got hooked on, you know, that aspect of like watching a plant grow and cultivating it.
Well, tell me more about hydroponics.
Yeah.
And what works in hydroponics? I got these hydroponics, aeroponics, vertical farming, just the things people are doing with plants. And now we're here at my office at the Hayden Planetarium. We're in Manhattan. There are buildings in Midtown Manhattan where plants are growing on the wall. And then the people are growing on their roof.
Nice.
So it's like, is Earth not good enough for you? Where did are these solutions to problems that people had encountered?
I think yes and no. I think if you go to hydroponics and aeroponics, those first two, hydro, of course, meaning water, aero meaning air, ponics coming from a ponos, which means work. So these are methods of growing where either the water or air does the work instead of what? Instead of soil, right? Which is where pretty much every
neither
plant
of them have soil. Yeah. There you go.
Neither of these are soil-based ways to grow. And so it's kind of weird, because if you think about it, you think, of course, a plant needs soil to grow. And I might even argue as a gardener, that is kind of true. I do prefer it. But what a plant really needs is what's in the soil, or what the soil is providing. Right. And the soil is almost a medium for oxygen, water, nitrogen, and nutrients.
Yeah.
And so when you're growing in a hydroponic environment like my cucumbers, well, there's no soil. So the plant, start a seed in like a little growing medium. In this case, it was something like called rock wool, kind of like spun molten rock in like this little fibrous cube. You put a cucumber seed in that, it grows up, the plant, the tissue grows up, but the roots grow down. And those roots grow down and hit the water. That water does have to be oxygenated, which is crazy, because you think, well, plants are taking in CO2 and releasing oxygen, right? Roots, though, respire. They're not photosynthesizing. So the roots are breathing. So the roots actually need oxygen. Otherwise, they'll simply drown in the water. You can drown them in soil. You can drown them in hydroponics. And then, of course, the plant needs nutrients, which would have been in the soil. So you have to add these synthetic nutrients in a hydroponic environment. And so the roots, like in a hydroponic environment, you open that 5-gallon bucket up, and you just see these perfect white roots kind of sprawling out in an almost unnatural way, because they're not fighting against anything. They're not kind of crawling through the soil. And they look amazing. Like there's a whole thing in hydroponics of like showing your roots, and like the people will
who's got the most beautiful roots.
Yes,
totally. Yeah. And but the crazy part is plants grown hydroponically tend to grow faster, and they tend to have roughly the same kind of macronutrient profile of like if you were to eat that food, but the flavor is kind of up for debate. I think, to me at least, the flavor does feel like a little bit flatter.
Kevin, it seems to me that if you have some control over what's feeding the plant, then there's no end of ways you can manipulate that to create whatever flavor profile you might want in a food, and possibly even patent that.
Nice.
How does this work with air? Because with the fluids such as water, I can see you can dissolve something in it, new nutrients can hang out. But air, how does it pull nutrients out of the air in aeroponics?
And in aeroponics, I messed around with this, I would say, a little bit back in the early days of starting Epic Gardening. The whole logic behind the aeroponic method is, well, the plant the plant roots don't really need to be bathed in water. They're, in soil, they're not bathed in water. And of course, you have to oxygenate that water with one of these air stones, kind of pumping the dissolved oxygen level up. So why don't we just separate the water from the system? Imagine that same 5-gallon bucket, and we'll actually bring in sprayers that will spray or mist in like a nebulized sort of level, like very small droplets of nutrient-rich water, and they'll mostly be sitting in air most of the time. So it's not that there's not water used, it's just that the roots aren't sitting in water. And I don't know off the top of my head, like, is that more efficient than hydroponics or not?
Are you nebulizing the leaves as well as the roots, or just the roots?
I think most people would just do the roots, but then there's this whole concept of like what's called foliar feeding, or feeding the leaves, where some things are uptaken by the leaves and used in certain ways. But of course, the roots are like the most common way that things are being uptaken.
Is this more intensive in terms of your management or anyone's management if you're vertically farming?
For sure, yeah. I mean,
because otherwise you're just letting Mother Nature do her thing, and you can sit back and go read a book or whatever it is.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I always like to say, like, well, people will say, I grew this or I can't grow this. And the way I think about it, at least, is the truth is no one's really ever grown a plant. As a gardener, what you're really doing is you're putting a plant in the environment in which it knows how to grow best. And so you're not growing it. Of course, it's growing itself. You just have to kind of cultivate that right environment. So in soil, yeah, it's a lot easier.
Right.
So looking at the nutrients, the one thing we always think of is going to need some sunlight or light. You mentioned in your balcony you had your own little grow lamp. Why is it that you've got some plants that will flourish with less and some just won't flourish unless they have 12 hours a day?
Yeah, this one is kind of interesting. So take like an eggplant. That's like a classic summer crop. It loves a lot of sun. And then take something like maybe spinach, which it's a leafy green. It grows low to the ground. If you were to give it a lot of sun, the leaves might actually bleach and get damaged.
Yeah.
And you think about it, it's like, well, they're both photosynthesizing. So wouldn't more light just equal better growth? And that's, I think really that's what I would think too. But when you think about it, like all these plants that we grow in a traditional garden, like even take a salsa garden, which we think of as a group of plants that make sense together. Like you got your jalapenos, you got your tomatoes, you got your peppers, your onions, whatever. From an evolutionary perspective, though, these plants did not just like grow up as a salsa garden somewhere in the world. We sort of cherry picked them from around the world in all these different environments where they adapted. So if you think about that, like take that spinach. I don't know where it's endemic to, but regardless, wherever it evolved, it was low in the canopy. It was low in the entire sort of hierarchy of the plants around it, right? So it was basically fighting for photons to photosynthesize with. Whereas like a nice tall like banana plant or something like that that's growing in the tropics, it has no problem with that. So of course it can tolerate more. And what ends up happening with like a shade plant that gets too much sun, if you put it in the wrong spot, is what once was good, the light, actually starts producing, I forgot what it is in the plant, but basically it starts producing too much of a certain compound that starts damaging the plant's ability to photosynthesize. Yeah. So basically too much of a good thing.
So what you're saying is if the plant wanted to survive but didn't have much light, it evolves to use that much light.
Right.
And if then it has less or more light than what it evolved to have, that can't be good for the plant because it didn't evolve that way.
Absolutely. And you see that even in some flowering plants, not even for consumption, but when you plant certain flowering plants that need what they'll say partial shade. That's where it grows best.
I've seen them say that.
They'll say a partial shade. Yeah. And the reason is you end up kind of frying the plant if it's in the sun all day long. So yeah.
So tell me, with the switch over to LED lights, has this changed the response of the plants to the light? Because the sun, at least what the sun gives off that gets through our atmosphere, includes some infrared, some ultraviolet. And the pure LED lighting systems we have today, you have the blue, you have the green, you have the red, the RGB. But it's not giving you infrared and it's not giving you ultraviolet. And so, whereas the sun has some of that reaching Earth's surface. So are there plants that will not do as well under your LED grow lights than they would out under the authentic sunlight?
I mean, I wouldn't go as far to make a bold claim to say like all of them would do better under normal sunlight, but I kind of do think that's the case because there are studies that prove not only do plants use far red, so like above the 700 nanometer range.
Just to be clear, the 700 nanometers is like the accepted edge of the visible spectrum, where we would identify it as red light.
Okay.
And you can have light energy beyond that. And we call it infrared, but your eye can't see it. Right. But of course, the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, they have different sensors than we do.
Yeah.
So we should not be defining what they care about and what they want.
Yeah, you're right. Like the first sort of LEDs that came out back when I was growing cucumbers, Chuck, back in my old place. They came out and they were called like blurple lights, blue, purple, red, because basically whoever was designing them back then was like, well, plants mostly use light between 400 and 700 nanometers, kind of like the visible spectrum. So they'll use blue light for vegetative growth. They'll use red light to signal flowering and stuff like that. So whoever was designing the lights back then was like, well, let's just give them exactly these ranges, like 450 nanometers or 660 nanometers, whatever it is. And then these days, lights that are coming out, LED or otherwise, are trying to put out more of that spectrum, because it's been proven, like you said, Neil, like they're using light in the far red spectrum. They're even using green light, which we didn't know for like a century. Because you always hear like, well, plants are green because they reflect green, and it's not entirely true.
Yeah, just to put some punctuation on that. So if we see a plant and it's green, it means it's sending green light back to you. And it's not using the green light,
right? That's
by and large, right? Which is a fascinating. We think green as nature, green is the color it's rejecting, right? So what you're saying is not all plants are rejecting all green.
Not all plants are rejecting all green. So if you take red and blue, just colloquially, those ranges, I think the plant is using somewhere between like 91 and 95%, depending on which color it is. Green, you would think like, well, it's reflecting green, so it's using like 0% or maybe 10%. It's still absorbing in the range of like 70 to 80% of green light.
So are you saying or implying that even though plants are green, they're not reflecting back all the green that they're receiving, they're keeping some of it?
Yeah, I mean, the whole leaves, like normal plant leaves, are absorbing maybe about 80% of green light or so. So they're reflecting back at 20, which is pretty much what we're seeing. But the way it ended up working in the study that kind of turned everyone on their head, realizing that we actually do use green light with plants, is that it's penetrating deeper into the canopy. So like the red and the blue light is getting used up first, absorbed at a really high efficiency. The green light gets deeper into the leaf, gets lower into the canopy. So it is being used. It's just that it's not being used as efficiently.
Okay. All right.
We hear about plants being able to adapt and survive in extreme conditions. I suppose it wouldn't be the same unless we asked you about growing plants in space and the extremes of the environments that would be encountered.
And before you answer that, can I tell you, when I was in high school, I grew a plant upside down. I said to myself, well, does it really know which way gravity is? And does it really know which way the light is in advance? Because if I take a plant, turn it upside down, hold it with saran wrap, the soil, so it doesn't come out, and I have all my light at the bottom.
From behind?
From behind. That's correct. So the plant, it kept trying to go up, but the light kept it coming down. So it didn't grow in a straight way. It was like confused on its way in.
What plant was it? Do you remember?
I have to look. I'm sure I kept the notes.
And then were you growing it in like a chamber where the only light source was below it?
It was the only light source. It was a box. It was a box.
Oh, that is interesting. Because I've grown peas upside down and I grew tomatoes upside down. The same thing happened, but my experiment was not one in which there was a controlled light source at the bottom. So it was just outside. And so it did basically, gravity was pulling it down and then it kept pulling itself back up towards the stronger light source. So it was almost this weird stair-stepping type effect.
That's basically the results I got. And I got an A+ on it too.
Oh,
let's go back to space.
Yeah, metaphorically. Are we going to just take what we do here on Earth and just say, yeah, we can do that in space? Or are we going to have to think a lot differently?
Because, Kevin, we speak of the lunar surface. It's not soil. It's what the geologists call regolith, which is powderized rock created by micrometeorites that on Earth would be what?
Burned up in the atmosphere?
Exactly, as a shooting star.
Right.
No such thing on the moon.
Oh, right.
They hit and they pulverize the rock. Nice. And it's been doing that for 1 billion years. So all you have on the moon is rock soil. And the good Earth is rich in microbes that the plant needs. So how are you going to grow something where you don't have the microbes or the fertilizer? What are you going to do?
I mean, I honestly think you just can't. Like, that's basically dirt, right? And the difference between dirt and soil is soil. Soil is dirt plus the life that you talked about, the microbes, the fungi, the bacteria.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you can't do that on the moon, well, first of all, there's no oxygen, there's no atmosphere, right? I think you'd have to grow them hydroponically or aeroponically in like a pressurized chamber. And I think you'd have to use artificial light, because what's the moon's like day-night
Moon's
cycle?
got light. No problem with light. Oh, moon has a monthly cycle. So a day on the moon lasts a month.
Yeah, so then you're in trouble because plants evolve for a 24-hour light cycle, right? And so you would need to supplement with light. They wouldn't survive for what, like 14 days of darkness.
It's a 14 days in darkness.
Right.
Okay, so you have to like phase that somehow.
Yeah.
Well, just bring grow lamps. I mean,
I think you just got to bring grow lamps. I mean, you basically just
Well,
have
that's
to
what they do in
replicate.
every sci-fi film. It's the horticultural deck.
Aren't we going to just take genetically modified plant material with us?
Yeah.
That has
Why not?
been built, constructed to grow in extremities, to maybe deal with month. I've learned a new word.
Well,
today.
that's where the word month comes from.
Yes.
The month.
Yeah.
But let me tighten that question. So as far as I know, plants like carbon dioxide. So if we're on the moon and we're all exhaling carbon dioxide, why don't we just capture that and stick it in the
chamber where it holds the plant.
Where it holds the plant. Do we exhale enough carbon dioxide to serve plants? And then it's a cycle of life. We exhale, they absorb our CO2, they give us the oxygen. Can that be sustained? In fact, let me ask another way. How much plant life do you need to satisfy your daily ingestion of oxygen?
I wish I knew. I don't know it, but I think there's definitely an amount that like on a per person basis.
Is it one tree per person? That's a lot of, because a lot of trees on Earth. I just learned there are 3 trillion trees on Earth.
Oh my God.
I said, I don't believe that. I ran some math on it.
Yeah.
It was like,
3 trillion?
Yeah.
You know what else you could do on the moon? I just thought about it. Is you could go aquaponics. So we talked about hydroponics and aeroponics. We didn't talk about aquaponics yet.
All right.
Which basically is, because you remember in hydroponics, aeroponics, you don't have the soil, so you don't have the nutrients, right? You need to input those nutrients synthetically. If you go aquaponics, though, you have fish in that water medium. Those fish excrete ammonia that converts to nitrites and nitrates, which is used as nitrogen by the plant. So basically, the fish become the fertilizer. So on the moon, you could feed the fish excrete, they feed the plants, and you can eat the plants and the fish.
Well, wait, so the aqua refers to what in that context?
Good question. I think just
the water.
But you just said hydroponics. The hydro referred to the water.
That's probably why they made it aqua, because they're like, Aquaman talks to fish.
That's interesting. I don't think NASA's thought about that.
No, it's a pretty cool idea.
But I wonder, however,
Water and weight. Everything is about weight.
has a fish ever been brought to space? Do you guys know?
I don't know, and I'd hate to be that fish, because fish align themselves vertically because they're skinny and long, vertically because they know which way gravity is.
Yes.
In 0G,
you're going to mess with that fish.
Yeah,
that fish is going to be totally.
Oh, man.
But what you could do, this is all kind of pointless conversation, because sci-fi people have figured this out forever.
Right.
You just rotate the spaceship.
Rotate the spaceship.
And there's your gravity.
There's your gravity.
There's
You got
gravity,
it. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, are we going to have to just, if we're interstellar travel, just come to the conclusion that, flavors are something in the past?
No, you get a flavor capsule. Flavor is just chemistry. I want to take this into a sustainability question, and maybe the transition to that is, tell me about the plot of land that you experimented on where you fed yourself for 30 days and that was all the food you ate. So did you get your protein? Did you lose weight? Did you look pale and sickly? Did you look healthy? How much land, and what was the mixture of fruit and vegetables that was on that land?
Okay, let me lay this out for you
And
guys.
were you the only one consuming that food?
I have to tell you the set of rules I gave myself to start the challenge.
Love
okay, so I came up with the idea. It was like February of 2019.
Love it. Brilliant idea. Love it.
Right? I go, can I do this? And remember, back then I was in a 15 by 30 foot grow space with like some raised beds and containers and stuff like that. So I gave myself that amount of space. And then I also utilized like one of my friend's little terraces. And I say, okay, I want 30, I'm giving myself 90 days of lead time. So by June, I'm going to start the challenge. So I have to survive from June 1st to June 30th off of everything I can either grow, fish, or forage for. Because I knew right away, just off the quick math, I was like, there's no way I can get enough calories out of this space. for a man of my size. I think I needed 78,000 calories for the month.
Well, what do you mean by fish? Use the fish as a verb. What do you mean?
Like literally go fishing.
Well, that's allowed?
This is why. Because, okay, name a plant with a ton of protein.
Well, you know, what's interesting.
Legumes.
What's interesting is that potatoes are like 1/4 protein. The problem is they're a way higher percent water. So if you took the water out of potato, you have
a dense protein source.
So potatoes are just full of water. That's the problem. But otherwise, yeah. So
well, you look at nuts for protein.
Yeah. So you didn't grow nuts in San Diego. That's a nut country, isn't it?
I mean, but I had 90 days, so I can't grow a tree from scratch, right? So it had to be produced from that moment on, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So here's where I go. Okay, I need 78,000 calories to live for 30 days and not lose weight. I even got a DEXA scan before just to see like what I was at, even my body comp to the point of losing muscle. And so I said, okay, well, I basically have to grow calories. I can't really worry about the macronutrients of it, protein, fat, carbs. I just need literally calories. And in 90 days, the only things you can do that are going to get you enough calories are going to be beans and potatoes. And I maxed out on potatoes like crazy. I think I ended up
the starches.
Yeah. It's like carbohydrate
beans have
heavy.
protein too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I grew about 80, 100 pounds of potatoes and some amount of beans. I forgot what it was. Because the protein and fat, specifically fat, actually harder than protein to grow quickly. If you think about plants with a lot of fat, you're thinking about like there's like a coconut or an avocado or something. You can't grow those in 90 days. And so I did allow myself to fish just because I was like, I think I will seriously struggle nutritionally if I don't get enough fat. Yeah. In San Diego, and actually along the whole western coast of California, there's a fish called the grunion, and they'll do something called a grunion run. And they'll basically flop themselves, like hundreds of thousands of them, on the beach, and you're allowed to go harvest them with your hands. You can't use like tools. And that was happening in June. So I was like, okay, I'm going to bank on the grunion run for my fat. Well, what happens is the females come up and like dig a hole and like lay their eggs in it, and then the males come up and drop their sperm on the hole. Yeah, exactly. A huge part of my meals that month were what I called grunion potato pancakes, where I like mashed the potatoes and put them in a pan and like put the fish in that and then just ate that. And that's pretty much what I ate the whole month. I ended up losing 13 pounds in 30 days.
Damn,
and nine of the pounds, this is the part that made me so mad, 9 of the pounds were muscle. I just ate my muscle away. Although I did make it to the end of the challenge. Basically what I learned is that you need way more time than that. And honestly, you need like being fully self-sufficient on your own property is sort of a fool's errand. Like it's much better to have a community anyways. I grow this, you grow that. I get my eggs from you, that kind of thing.
Right. I mean, that's the way it was before we had our modern day capitalist society. It was cool. Agrarian and trade and
totally.
Yeah. Barter system.
Are we just screwed when the apocalypse comes? We're just screwed, right?
Yeah. And what about like the victory gardens that people had in the Second World War to show your solidarity with the rationing? So in apocalyptic Earth, you're one of the survivors, right?
I would make it. Yeah. I mean, you'd put me in your apocalypse crew, I think, because I could feed you.
Because I mean, the canned food can last essentially forever until at least the next civilization comes around.
Right.
But
you can dry your grunions if you have a cool, damp basement and just some salt.
Hang them out,
Hang them out and dry.
Yeah, back in the salt. Yeah, you need the salt. Okay, so tell me about sustainability going forward. With mega agri, what do you call it? Farming?
Big ag
farming.
Yeah.
That is the solution to our own problem, yet people are saying we shouldn't do that. It's feeding everyone. No longer is anyone saying one day we'll run out of food. That is gone.
Yeah.
Whereas in our childhood, I don't know how old you are. I think we're older than you. In our childhood, that was the worry.
The big fear with the population explosion would strip us of all food on the planet.
This was very Malthusian thinking at the time, but science has cured that.
Right.
We can produce more food on less land with fewer farmers than ever before. So how should people think about this problem? Should we cheer the fact that everyone is being fed, or should we lament the fact of what it's doing to the environment in order to accomplish this goal?
Man, I think it has to be a both, right? I mean, you're right. We grow corn, soy, wheat across most of the Midwest of the USA. California grows like 80% of the produce of the countries. We grow such an incredible amount here, you know?
So Kevin, my whole life I've heard about topsoil, but I don't have any understanding of it, even as a scientist, because the seed grows up into the air, goes down with roots into the soil. Who cares about the top 3 or 4 inches?
Yeah, I mean, we should all care about the top 3 or 4 inches. The top 3 or 4 inches is basically where everything actually happens for the plant. So you're right, like the roots are down in the soil, right? And yes, sometimes those roots go pretty deep and they can mine for specific minerals or nutrients that they might need. But in contrast to like hydroponics, like we've been talking about, in the soil, there's basically what's called a soil food web. There's bacteria, there's fungi, there's insects, there's all sorts of creatures that are mobilizing the organic matter. Because think about like a forest floor. Things are going to fall from the forest. Animals are going to die. Insects are going to die or be consumed and defecate and all that kind of stuff. All of that material needs to be broken down to smaller and smaller particles to the point where it's effectively at the elemental level to be used by the plant roots. That's happening in a natural ecosystem by the environment in the topsoil. All of that is in that first 3, 4, 6 inches or something like that.
Why isn't it in the 6 inches below that?
I wouldn't know the exact maybe evolutionary ecosystem reason for this, but my hypothesis, I guess, would be that it's because it's efficient for the plant roots to not have to go that far to get the nutrients.
That kind of feels right.
Sense.
That feels right. Well, so what's happening to the topsoil?
So we're losing it dramatically faster than it's being regenerated.
Why?
Because the way that we farm in industrial agriculture is we're effectively, it's almost like you're growing hydroponically in the soil, because you've now, let's say you've stripped all the topsoil, just hypothetically, right? Well, now you're growing in effectively dirt. There's not a lot of life in it. There's not a lot of nutrient content in it anymore. So what do? Big, huge machines come in and till in the synthetic nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium that you need. So you're basically saying the dirt's now the growing medium, and I'm taking these synthetics that I've maybe mined from some cave somewhere, and transported with fossil fuels, right?
Includes the phosphates too and things. I mean, is that
it can, yeah. And so we're sort of like taxing the earth and not repaying it enough. Yeah. And there will be a point at which there's like, you've crossed the sort of horizon of being able to do that. And then you may actually see yields fall off like crazy because we're just losing it way too fast.
But you just said we can manufacture what the topsoil would have done if we till it back into the soil. So who cares at this point?
Okay, so
we've outsmarted nature.
But no, what he's talking about is sustainability, because what happens once you get dirt is now you must do that all the time.
So what? I'll do it all the time. So what?
But that's solving one problem to create another whole lot of downstream problems.
I just solved that problem.
Well, we'll riff off of it, Chuck. Like, I've got one for you. So California grows a ton of almonds, right? We grow most of the almonds in the country. So the way to do it efficiently in the industrial, Neil method is you're going to put only almond trees in the orchard, right? You're going to strip away everything else. And what do almond trees need to produce the almonds? Well, they have a flower. That flower needs to get pollinated. How is that flower going to get pollinated? By the bees that are native to that area, typically. Well, there are no bees anymore because there's no other crop in that area that the bees would naturally forage from. So what has to happen as a result? This is just one example of a second order effect. There's a whole industry now called managed bee pollination, where people will produce bees, put them in hives, drive them around the country,
and allow them to pollinate.
Exactly.
But the bees are no longer naturally there, because what you did was the other flora you eliminate it.
Okay,
and that's what keeps the bees in the place.
So it created an industry.
When those chemicals go in, a lot of times they run off as well. So what you get is farm runoff of all of these chemicals that you put in, and everything's a chemical. So you know what I mean when I say.
Where's it going to go?
So
it's going to go into chemicals, the ecosystem.
I mean the stuff that's needed. And what that does, it goes into our water systems. It goes into our groundwater. Okay. I mean, it's not.
Okay, so now I filter the water, so then that's back to the. So now what?
Put another industry in there. This goes into groundwater. It goes into the rivers. The rivers will go into the sea, and then we're just moving stuff into the ocean.
We have a mouse problem. That's okay. Let's get some hawks.
It never ends, and then in the end, you end up like manually reinventing what nature already was doing. Right. Is the way that I think about it.
And how do we?
Wait. We have to. That's a profound thing. Could you just say that again?
Yeah. Okay.
Give that to me.
Sure. So if you try to solve every problem that you created from these large-scale agricultural systems, you end up basically just recreating what nature already was doing.
Right.
Ooh,
that's a great way to put at it. To look at it.
That's deep.
I mean, you go around in a circle and come back to the point you originally were to realize you had it good. And then you just...
So what did they do before we did this commercial farming, which is commercial agro? Did they just rotate fields and not use them, and then you come back to them, and
totally.
And so
please.
I mean, in the past, I guess you're kind of right, Neil. Like 100 years ago, you would have spent part of your actual life producing the food, right? Let alone buying it. But in the past, we used effectively like regenerative agriculture principles, where you're not taking more from the land than you are putting back into it, which right now we are doing. And when I say taking more, putting back in, what are these things that we're taking and putting? It's the nutrient inputs, it's the topsoil loss, it's the organic matter that you're taking. Because if you think about like a garden, you're growing, let's say you grow a plot of corn. That corn, when you harvest it out, you're taking mass from the system. You're taking it out. And some of that is being generated by photosynthesis and carbon that's being sort of sequestered from the air. But
from
still,
the CO2 in the air. Yeah.
From the CO2 in the air. Yeah. But what people will do these days, or stuff that like we'll do in our backyard or we'll promote, is regenerative practices where you are adding back as much as you are. And maybe you are leaving something for a crop called a cover crop, which you're basically just growing to generate biomass that you will cut and leave in place.
Interesting.
Right.
Wait, so with corn, lately I've noticed, by the way, I was astonished, forgive me for even being so ignorant, that every stalk of corn makes only one ear of corn. That felt so wrong. So now what I see them doing is you harvest up the ear of corn and the rest of the stalk gets sort of mulched back into the field, because all of that came out of the field at some level, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think corn's an interesting one because corn is one of the crops, of course, that we've modified, right?
Yeah.
So most of the corn that you're seeing like in those fields is like a single ear hybrid corn variety that is only going to produce one per stalk, where there are corn that produces more than one. But yeah, like people will do that. I mean, we'll do that sometimes. You'll cover crop and you'll let like barley or rye or oats or something like that, or some sort of legume, because legumes do something called nitrogen fixation, where not only will they take CO2 like every plant will from the air, they'll fix atmospheric nitrogen into the soil, which is great. And so you grow something like that. That's
called nitrogen fixation.
Yeah. They're like a pump.
Okay, because the atmosphere is 78% nitrogen.
Yep.
So we got the nitrogen. And so it takes that and puts it back into the soil, which serves as, in some way, as a fertilizer.
Well, yeah, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are the three major elements that plants need to grow. Nitrogen being probably the most needed.
Right.
And so
I love that. I never heard that term cover crop, but it makes sense.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Kevin, I mean, way back, when the agricultural revolution took hold, they would leave a field fallow to let it rest.
I remember that. We don't hear about that anymore.
Right? And I'm going to get to that follow-up question. Then when you say cover crop, would that be you'd plant that crop in that field and then that would then become absorbed back into the soil? You wouldn't harvest it?
You wouldn't harvest it.
Are people out there still practicing these old traditional farming methods, or is that just gone? Just give it chemicals and let's grow everything.
The group that's doing it the most are these urban farming folks who are farming on maybe a third of an acre like me, although I'm not traditionally farming.
Sure.
I've got a buddy here in San Diego. He farms on an acre. I think he makes about $150,000 a year selling his produce at market. He loves that lifestyle. He'll run his chickens through, which of course they're going to be eating. They're going to be eating insects, right? Yep. They're going to be taking a little bit of forage here and there. What are they doing? They're making droppings. Those droppings are extremely high in nitrogen, right? So you're using animals. People will do something called I think silvopasture, where they'll run like pigs through forests. There's like all these weird combinations people are coming up with to try to get
sympathetic and a symbiotic relationship between maybe animals, the plants, and growing other crops around other crops.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I get to. I go, nature's kind of doing it already, but you can come up with like really creative techniques, like running the chickens through the field, right? Instead of solving the problem that you created by creating this problem, by creating that problem,
So the Jonathan Swift, who's famous for authoring Gulliver's Travels. Okay. One of Gulliver's Travels, this 1726, I think it was, one of his visits was to the Legato Academy, which was a academy where there's just scientists doing completely batshit crazy things. Okay. And But one of them was, you read their experiment, it sounded kind of like, but then you think about it, it's like, no. So one of them was, they didn't want to have to till the soil. So they said, let's bury apples in the soil and then send pigs out onto the soil. They'll sniff, find the apples, dig up the apples, poop, and they'll keep doing this. And that way they can till the soil and fertilize the soil at the same time. Okay.
And how'd that work out?
It didn't. They were already tilling the soils to dig up the soil to plant the apple.
Yeah.
See? So at first, it sounds clever at first.
Right.
But it's not. So you were saying try to double duty on the chickens. If they just poop on the top, does that get down into the soil or does that get washed away?
Well, they'll scratch through. So like, my hens they'll come out in the garden, they'll scratch through like 3-4 inches deep sometimes, hunting for little bugs and grubs.
So obviously not everyone has a plot of land to grow food, but everyone who pays rent has some household square footage and in principle can buy a grow light for not much money. So how much of a difference can everyone growing something to eat make in this world?
It's such a good question. I mean, you brought up Victory Gardens earlier. I think back in those times, we produced something like 15 to 20% of our produce as a nation from the Victory Garden movement. Whoa. But that took like a world war to galvanize everyone to do, you know? So like, what would it take? I'm not really sure. If everyone did it, what do I think would happen to the food system? I mean, it would meaningfully change, but then you got to remember, like, what are most of the crops being produced in America? It's like soy, corn, and wheat. Even though like those aren't probably going to be grown a ton, even for if like tens of millions of people started home gardening, they'd probably be hitting the tomatoes, the basil, the this, the that.
Right.
I would say what you'd see the biggest impact is probably like the entire culture's attitude toward sustainability and food systems would change for the better in a meaningful way. I don't necessarily know you'd like solve the topsoil crisis by doing that.
But it could create a sea change in how people think about the environment that could have other beneficial decision-making consequences in people's lives.
Completely. Yes. I mean, before I started gardening, like I said, I was like addicted to playing video games. You know, I didn't know anything about this. Now I've changed my entire life and habits because of just getting into
because your mother kicked you out of the basement.
Let's wrap it up with the final question. So, Kevin, what's the question about plants or food systems, if you like, that you think science hasn't answered yet?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
What are you waiting for scientists to figure out on your behalf?
There's a lot of them, man. But the one that just selfishly I'd be interested in is how to impact flavor at a deeper level. Because when you think about crops that are like wine, right? People get very snobby about their wine. Oh, the terroir of this land, this or that. It's true for all crops, though.
Yeah.
You know, just because it's wine, of course, that's a high value crop. I would love to know, like, what is impacting the flavor, let's say, of a tomato. I actually went to Bayer Monsanto once in the belly of the beast, and I did a 50 tomato taste test. And there's this whole wheel you're tasting these tomatoes on. I would love to know, like, what can I do as a home gardener to impact the acidity of that tomato more, or bring out certain flavonoids?
You need a home genetically modified organism laboratory. Yes. So flavor. And by the way, the counterpart to that in the grown meat movement,
right?
I don't know where that is now, but last I checked, there was a lot of investment money going into the, what's it called? Not grown meat.
Laboratory meat.
Laboratory
meat,
synthesized meat, but it's actual meat protein.
It's meat protein.
It's meat
just
protein.
grown in a dish.
It's grown in a dish that you didn't have to kill an animal to provide. Yeah. All right. Maybe the first one to get the stock.
Right.
But after that, you didn't have to. If I, in my laboratory, develop a cocktail of flavors that I infuse into those meat fibers, and then I sell it as my, the first of these would probably be a ground beef.
It's going to be a burger.
It's going to be a burger.
It's definitely going to be a burger.
Right? And so I'm going to have a proprietary burger flavor.
Right.
And I think that's the next frontier. Because like I said, flavor is just chemistry.
It's true.
It's just, what is the flavor molecule intersecting with your taste buds?
It's so true.
That's all it is.
Back to AI.
And in fact, there's one molecule, I learned this, and I think it's true, that the molecule for mint, it has a certain chirality to it.
Okay.
Chirality is
a mirror image.
It would be the opposite of a mirror image of it. It turns in a way that the mirror image of that molecule is not the same.
It's not the same. Right.
It's just a mirror image of it. Okay?
All right.
All right. That mint taste one way on your palate. If you make the mirror image molecule of mint, you get the flavor of caraway.
Really?
Oh, okay.
So the caraway and mint are flavor profiles of the same molecule written,
just
flipped in a mirror.
Right.
So we need a flavor wheel, like you get a color wheel.
Wow, that's so interesting because caraway's in the carrot or parsley family, and mint's in its own.
Yeah, they got.
family.
But I'm just talking about the flavor.
Just the flavor.
Yeah,
just the flavor, not the rest of its substance. Right.
That's still fascinating.
Now, just to be clear, I heard that multiple times, but I've never officially read it in a journal, and I've never seen anything to counter it. So I'm just putting it out there. But whether or not what I just said is true.
No, it's true because there's the same thing with banana, and I forget the other flavor. But it's the exact same thing.
Okay, our crack team of researchers just verified what I just said.
Yeah, definitely. I believe it. Yeah. Same thing with banana. It's the banana molecule, which gives you the flavor of banana. It's the same thing. The flip of it gives you something else, and I can't remember what it is.
You've been highly illuminating and enlightening to this conversation, and we're delighted that such as you exist in this world. And you have an ever-growing YouTube channel on this topic. And tell me about your second YouTube channel real quick.
Yeah, that one's called Epic Homesteading. It was just the story of building out that property that I've been telling you guys about.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So we can find you in two ways there. Yeah. And and so we can find you, what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Epic Gardening. All right, take care.
All right, guys. Bye.
Peace out.
Bye.
So this has been another installment of StarTalk Special Edition.